Okay, seeing that the appointed time has arrived and seeing quorum, the chair opens up the Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018 meeting of the Mashpee Planning Board. It's being held here at Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Massachusetts. Time 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome you all here and thank you for your participation in your local government. The Planning Board strongly encourages public participation. Please note we are being videographed and recorded. If you have the opportunity to address the Planning Board, please do so at the podium or the mic stand, whichever you're more comfortable at. State your name, your address, and your comments. Please note that all comments are made through the chair. That's me. The board may address your comments, ask staff or our engineer to address your comments, ask the applicant or the project proponent to address your comments, or simply take your comments under advisement. Tonight, public comment will only be taken during public hearings due to the length of our agenda. I invite you all to stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have 3 sets of minutes. Can everybody hear me? If you can't hear me, just, raise your hand or, make the sign. I'll talk louder. Okay, so we have 3 sets of minutes to approve July 18th, August 1st, and September 5th. I've read them all. I don't offer any amendments. I don't know if you guys have any amendments to propose, or would you like to make a motion to approve them all?
I make a motion to approve all the minutes for July.
So July 18th, can you read the dates?
Yeah, July 18th. What's the other? I don't have my...
Oh, sorry, July 18th, 2018, August 1st, 2018, September 5th, 2018.
So be.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't have my minutes.
That passed the test, Jen? Thank you. Okay. Okay, so our first public hearing starts in 10 minutes. Under additional topics not necessarily anticipated by the chair, we have 2 items that have to do with paying Charlie. I'd like to take a roll call vote to add hold on, sorry. To add the October 2nd invoice from Charlie for services for the month of September 2018, attendance at 2 regular meetings, inspections at Aquay Estates and Cotuit Highlands, totaling $695.
Make a motion to pay Charlie $695 for 2 inspections.
Oh,
Oh, we got
so we need a roll call vote to add that onto the agenda. Sorry.
Make a motion to add this onto the agenda.
And this too. So this is the September bill for Charlie Rowley
December bill for Charlie Rowley.
and the signature of batch cover for,
That cover street.
flip it over, what month was that?
August. That's the warrant date, August.
Yeah, let me see.
You could use the batch number, invoice number.
Okay.
So this is the basin.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me put my glasses on. Original numbers 7344, object 5200.
And the warrant date is above it.
The warrant date is 8/17/18.
And the amount?
$250.
And it's paid to Charlie Rowley?
Has been.
Paid to Charlie Rowley.
Okay, so we need I need that seconded
second.
by roll call vote to add it onto the agenda. Rob?
Yes.
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 Yep.
All right, so now you can make
Now
the
I make a
motion to
to
pay.
pay Charlie
Second?
This is all in one bill?
Yep, that's for the month of September for $695.
Okay, $695 and plus this one?
No, let's do them one at a time.
All right.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. And I'll make another to pay the bill for Charlie for $250 for the month of October.
Second?
It wasn't the month of October.
Oh.
It was just,
August.
August. Second that.
That's,
August?
I think that's been
It
paid.
has been
It's-
paid, they just need signatures.
for 200,
Oh, okay.
the amount of
All right,
$250.
for $250.
You did
Second
second?
again.
All in favor?
Aye.
And this will need to be signed as well. That's for the most recent invoice.
We got signed now.
Did you put in our packet the memo from the CPA? All right. I'm going to wait 2 more minutes. I just wanted to give you an update regarding the Community Preservation Committee. We're not meeting this month, but like I said last time, Andrew Gottlieb is the new chair of the CPA, and we're going to work on a plan for the funds and the program. And so they're looking from each committee and board their ideas, about what to use CPA funds for. Community preservation funds, I don't know if anybody in the audience knows this, but it can be used for affordable housing, open space recreation, and historic preservation. So the committee is looking for, ideas, what we should use the funds for, if we still need the fund going out, how much that should be, that kind of stuff. So we'll get you that memo, and then probably in our next meeting, we can spend some time. This is a good time to look at things that have been identified in different plans for the town and other agencies to see if those fundings are a good fit. We also, it's 7:10, so I'm going to start the 7:10 meeting. Seeing that the appointed time has arrived, the chairman opens up the 7:10 meeting on the October 15, 2018 town meeting warrant. It's a proposed zoning amendment, Article 14, amendment to to the bylaw to allow, It's an amendment to the wireless facility overlay district. So just to let everybody know that warrant article is on a different schedule than the other ones. That public hearing starts at 7:45. Town of Mashpee Planning Board Public Hearing Notice. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018 at 7:10 in the Wacoit Meeting Room at Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road, North Mashpee, Mass, to review the following zoning articles proposed for action at the October 15th, 2018 town meeting. Warrant Article 14. Why does it say executed?
Because the first public hearing postings were from the second draft of the warrant.
Okay.
That is following the executed warrant, the last Board of
Okay.
Selectmen meeting.
So the warrant Article 14 on the executed town meeting warrant, amendment to wireless facility overlay district. This article would amend the zoning bylaw by amending the wireless facility overlay district to include a parcel of town-owned land on Red Brick Road. The article also corrects an outdated listing of overlay districts which are not shown on the basic zoning map. The full text of the article was available on review at the office of the town clerk or the town planner at Mashpee Town Hall, submitted by Mary E. Wagon, Chair, Mashpee Planning Board. It was published on September 19th and September 26th. So is there anyone from the audience that would like to offer public comment on this article? Hi. So come right up. Go right to the mic or the podium.
I wonder if they're
So you have to use the mic. The only thing I can offer you is a printed warrant. You mean the
Okay,
map?
Are they here? Yes, so that we can look at what it is that's being discussed. The map.
So
yes.
your name is?
I'm Deirdre Grealish, Pond Circle, Mashpee.
Okay. I don't think the warrant article included a map.
But isn't that what the article's about? I think you just said an overlay. Okay, so don't we have to see it?
I would think so.
I don't know if we have, if that zoning map has the overlay district printed on it.
So the wireless facility overlay district is a pretty complex overlay district. It's established based on 3 varying criteria. That includes if a parcel of land is located within the Otis Air Force Base, I can't remember, it's a large acronym, safety zone, I'll have to confirm the title of that. And that's only within the R3 and R5 districts. It would have to be included in the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge boundary, and it would have to be more than 1,000 feet from a historic resource. So that within that overlay district, there are parcels of land located within that overlay scattered throughout town if they meet those 3 criteria. This parcel of land, according to written zoning, is included, but this is to firm up any ideas to firmly establish that 122 Red Brook Road is in fact within the overlay, and specifically names that parcel.
Okay, I feel at a disadvantage because I don't know what I'm seeing. I think you're describing the whole town of Mashpee except for some areas that are excluded. So what's the purpose exactly?
So the public hearing notice indicates, the language of the proposed warrant article, as well as the zoning map, are on file in the town clerk, as well as in my office. And I'm happy to go through the article with you at any given time.
Well, I think the appropriate time to go through it with me is now, but we don't have the map,
Per the
so.
public, and I understand that completely, but per the public hearing notice, it indicated where you could find the article, which is in my office, or the town clerk, and I'd be happy to go through those with you at any given time. You can make an appointment with me if you'd like.
Okay. Were you going to make a presentation and explain what overlay, okay, so can I
This
ask?
wasn't an article submitted by the planning board.
It wasn't.
No.
Where did
So
it
we-
come from?
Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen put in an article about an overlay district for our planning maps? All right. No, I guess my basic question is, what is it? I have a cell phone, it works fine. So what is this wireless thing supposed to do anyway? What's the point of overlaying the town with a thing? What's it mean?
So the overlay district is an already established district in town. Currently, and not before the board this evening, is a development of regional impact at the Cape Cod Commission. All wireless facilities are developments of regional impact that the planning board is required to accept special permit application for, and then delegate that decision to the Cape Cod Commission, in which the planning board is currently awaiting their response. So they're not empowered right now to discuss that particular project. But this proposal before town meeting is to include the parcel of land that the RFP, the request for proposals that the Board of Selectmen issued a year or 2 ago to establish a wireless tower in this, at 122 Red Brook Road. It's to clear up any misconceptions about whether or not this parcel of land is included in the overlay, which it is.
So is there an overlay district at this moment? Did we vote it in a previous town meeting?
There is.
All right, so it's already been voted.
Yes.
And an overlay district means this is the places where Verizon or somebody could put a cell
That's correct.
tower. I think they don't use towers anymore out west anyway. They use something smaller than a tower, but,
There are a variety of technologies, and monopole is still the most primarily used technology, but you are correct, there are other technologies that can be implemented.
so the purpose of this overlay is to say, it's almost like an industrial zone or a commercial zone, but it's not that. So explain to me why.
You
It
want to know
isn't-
what's different than a district versus an overlay?
Yes, because I mean, you would think of it being as something industrial or commercial, certainly commercial, because they make money. So why would we overlay the whole town except for a few places with something that was really have a commercial purpose?
Certainly. So actually, I'm going to point right behind me. I'm not going to stand so I can save the mic, but to the far right is our zoning map, and you can see in the various colors,
Yeah,
a dark yellow, a mustard yellow, the red in the center. those are our various base zoning districts.
Yep.
The yellows are our residential districts, the red are our commercial districts, and the purple are our industrial districts. So that's our base zoning. A wireless tower is pretty sensitive use, so the overlay establishes the varying criteria that would provide some type of safeguard around historic properties, the wildlife refuge, etc. So this overlay, it's almost like an algorithm that assesses every parcel in town, and if it meets those criteria, it identifies those parcels, and those parcels would be included in the overlay, and that's where a tower of the height being proposed, that's currently before the commission, could be situated.
And did you mention open space in there?
And so the wildlife refuge is the wildlife refuge is a bit of a complex beast, but there's an acquisition boundary to the wildlife refuge, and then there are acquired parcels that are under control of the wildlife refuge. And that's a vast swath of open space throughout Mashpee, all the way from the south to the north.
Why would that be excluded?
It's
why would it be
included? Why, it is not, the property would have to not be residing within the boundary of the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge. So a monopole, for example, a wireless monopole, cannot sit within the refuge.
Okay, so I live in Johns Pond. I live on Johns Pond. I'm in or I'm out. Which is it?
Depends on, so you could be, you might not be. I would have to look at the zoning map based on the criteria already voted on by town meeting.
So,
Okay, I just, because my buddy here, Joe, has been giving me some information. The address, I believe, is 101 Red Brook.
Correct.
so we're talking about a specific location, not the whole town, or are we doing both?
So the article as proposed.
And that's the fire station.
It's Mashpee Fire Station number 2. This would amend the bylaw to make sure to specifically name this parcel as included within the overlay district.
Because it's not in there now?
That's not correct. It currently is correct.
Then why are we-
Because the complexity of the zoning has raised questions, I think, from townsfolk. My colleagues at the Cape Cod Commission, myself, and based on the written zoning currently established by town meeting and the analysis I've conducted, this parcel of land does qualify as within the Mashpee Wireless Facility Overlay District.
Okay, so it
This would-
sounds.
Go ahead.
Sounds like the legislation, the article is more narrow than I thought it was. It's not doing the overlay, it's not laying the overlay district, that's already done.
Yeah.
Correct.
What it's doing is saying, and oh, by the way, this parcel, which is in the overlay district, is in the overlay district. Do I understand that correctly?
So allow me to explain this a little bit further.
I don't want to monopolize too. I'll take my answer sitting
Well,
down.
this
Thanks.
should clear up your question. The way, as I mentioned with the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge, there's an acquisition boundary, and then there are parcels under control of the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge. As drafted, the zoning states that the overlay district, parcel of land cannot be within the overlay district if it's within the boundary of the wildlife refuge. Other overlays specifically call it the acquisition boundary. This parcel is within the acquisition boundary, but is not under control of the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge. So when you look at our interactive GIS map online, that algorithm is based off of the acquisition boundary. But as written, it does not state the acquisition boundary.
An acquisition boundary is, it sounds to me like it's a parcel we'd like to buy if we could, as to be part of our,
It's a parcel that is contiguous with the wildlife refuge, and if acquired, would be included. But it is under control of the town of Mashpee. It is where our second Mashpee Fire Station number 2 is located. It is not under control of the Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge, but it is within the acquisition boundary. And that's where the interpretation of the zoning becomes less clear, which is the intent of this article is to clarify the intent of the zoning.
okay, and you want to clarify it because it sounds like you want to put a cell tower there.
There was an RFP issued back in 2015. I'm not exactly sure when the RFP was issued, before my time as town planner, but that RFP specified that a cell tower is desirable at this location.
We need a cell tower in that area. I mean, it's horrible. You can't get phone calls once you get, where I live down the end. Near the, right near the state beach.
I just want to note to the board, the DRI is before the Cape Cod Commission, and we shouldn't be discussing the project, but the overlay.
Yeah. I've been to the beach.
Are
and
you clear where it is located?
I know Red
This
Brook
is the only map
Road.
that I have in my possession showing you where it
There
is.
you go. He just- Yeah,
I'm sorry, it's very far away.
right. Red Brook Road,
If anyone would like to look at it after.
yeah. I know where the
You're by John's
substation
Pond,
is.
so it's not near that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying the article.
Thank you.
I wish I had a map, but thank you anyway.
Again, happy to make an appointment with anyone who'd like to review the article or the overlay.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment on this minute? Hi.
Hey, I'm going to use the podium if you don't mind.
I love it when people use the podium.
Hold my paper. My name is Terry Ronhock. I'm 104 DeGrasse Road. And so, Madam Chair and the Planning Board, I'd like to talk with you tonight because I'm here along with my neighbors and other residents in town of Mashpee to request that you not recommend Article 14 at town meeting. First, I want to say that I'm a direct abutter to this property, and have some concern about the lack of transparency with this article. Actually, the whole cell tower proposal. I've received one registered letter regarding this cell tower proposal, and that was actually the registered letter for the initial meeting that we had here when we were told that this proposal was going to the Cape Cod Commission and that there would be no discussion with the planning board until it came back from the Cape Cod Commission. We received no letters, registered or otherwise, from the Cape Cod Commission, although we were told we would. Neither myself or any of my neighbors were aware of this particular meeting tonight. In fact, we didn't know about the article as well until we read it in the Mashpee Enterprise on September 14th. After we read about the article in the Mashpee Enterprise on September 14th, we checked to see if there was a planning board meeting regarding this article, public meeting. We checked the town calendar, and we also checked the town board out here. And we didn't find any notification that this meeting was occurring. So we checked the bylaws, and we saw that if we had a petition with 10 people signed, the planning board shall, says the bylaws, shall have a public meeting regarding a town article on the warrant that was including, that had to do with a bylaw change, a zoning bylaw change. So we collected our signatures, and we went down to town hall with our signatures and our petition, and I believe Mr. Lear probably has that, requesting a meeting. And when we got there, there was no one to leave it with, so it was left. And then we received a call from Mr. Lear later that day saying there was, in fact, a meeting planned, and it was October 3rd. Now, obviously, the neighbors didn't know because we wouldn't have bothered making the petition if we did. But so we asked why it wasn't posted in the Enterprise, and we were told the Enterprise was full and it had been posted in the Cape Cod Times. So, and it was posted in the Cape Cod Times, but all of our meetings are always posted in the Enterprise, and that's where we look for meeting postings. So we also were here last week for the other planning board meeting, and it still wasn't on the town board. In fact, yesterday it was stamped October 2nd. The meeting is now posted there.
Were you
So-
here for the whole meeting?
Yes.
Because on the 27th, I think I did announce that this article was going to be today.
The last week, yes.
On the
Yes,
27th, I did
yes.
talk about, like,
Right,
you'll
but
notice.
prior to that, yes, by that time, we
yeah.
had been informed, but prior to that, we had not been informed,
all right.
or we would not have brought a petition down to town hall. That was, so that being said, I just feel like I have some concerns about the transparency, about especially the neighbors and the people that are abutting this. But that being said, I am here to petition the planning board not to recommend this article for several reasons. The Cape Cod Commission isn't receiving the report from the subcommittee until their meeting on October 18th. And that would be the subcommittee. The Enterprise published that the Cape Cod Commission favored this, but in fact, the subcommittee has not made their recommendation to the full commission. That will be done on October 18th. Then, from my understanding, the commission will have a public hearing on it, the full commission, and then make a decision. Then it will come back to the planning board. So it's my understanding that the planning board can't discuss this proposal. So I can't understand how the planning board can approve an article on a zoning bylaw change for a proposal they can't even talk about. I don't understand that. It's still with the Cape Cod Commission, so you can't rule on it until you get their ruling. Is that an erroneous assumption?
I'm not going to be able to have an answer for you on that tonight. But go ahead.
But that's a question in the air. Okay, the planning board elected for this purpose should have control over bylaw changes. Our retired town planner, Tom Fadula, spent his life's work designing a plan for this town that protected our neighborhoods and the Mashpee wildlife areas with natural habitat and can protect those areas from commercial development. And this comprehensive plan that was also established Mashpee Wireless Overlay District with guidelines that would allow the planning board to approve cell towers in that district. So our concern is that the article was proposed by the selectmen to contract for a commercial space with Blue Sky Towers LLC. All right, this property on Red Brook Road is R3 zoned, and it's in the boundaries of the Mashpee Wildlife Refuge. Okay, therefore, it's not in the Mashpee Wildlife District. And that fact is solidified by the Selectmen's 11th hour authoring and placement of Article 14 on the town warrant in an attempt to spot rezone this property into the overlay district. I can't imagine that anyone would waste time, taxpayers' time, and funds to put an article on a warrant to reiterate something that already was language. Why would you do that? I mean, why would you take all the time of Mashpee voters that come out to town meeting and ask them to vote on something that you're saying is already true? I don't understand.
I don't want you to miss any point, but you don't have to repeat it. Just give me the points.
Okay.
Sorry.
Last October town meeting, the selectmen voted against Article 20, which was an attempt to spot rezone residential property for commercial use. That's what this Article 14 is. It's spot zoning, and if Article 14 is passed and this spot zoning is allowed to be, this could be a dangerous precedent in our town for future requests for zoning bylaw changes, because once we make a spot zoning change, future proposals will go back to this decision at town meeting on October 15th. And I also feel like this proposal is circumventing the planning board and the power that the planning board has over zoning bylaw changes. And today, this is DeGrasse, Blue Castle, Red Brook Road, Gia Lane, and Tracy Lane, and all the neighborhoods around that area. But many Mashpee residents are concerned that if Article 14 passes, they'll lose important protection in their neighborhoods. So I understand what you're saying, that, you're saying that some people are saying this isn't near their neighborhood, but people are starting to think they have areas in their neighborhood. Could they be spot rezoned into the wireless overlay district next town meeting or the town meeting after that? So I and my neighbors are asking you to
I'm going to give you just one more minute.
Sure.
To wrap it up.
Yep. I and my neighbors are asking you to uphold the power invested in this board and vote not to recommend Article 14 at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I wish that were for me. So we have a public hearing that we have to open and push back. So. No, I'm not gonna. Yep, I'm so happy you're all here. You're all going to get us a time to talk. I might start limiting the time that you have to talk, because we will be here past midnight. But we have other things on our agenda, so what we'll do is we'll open those meetings up and continue them to a different time tonight. So I'm going to come back to Article 14 in 2 seconds. So the 720 Aquay Highlands, I take a motion to...
7:30.
It is 7:30.
Make a motion, we continue Arkway Highlands subdivision discuss it till 7:30.
It is 7:30, so you better do 7:45.
7:45, sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so going back to Article 14. Please come right up. Maybe 3 to 5 minutes?
Probably won't even take that
Okay,
long.
thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Joan Muse, and I live at 19 Captain's Row in Mashpee, where I do have cell phone service. However, I'm a real estate broker and have been for 45 years in the town of Mashpee. The only part of the entire town that has no service, none, zero, no service, meaning no text, no phone, no emergency, no nothing, is the south part of Mashpee towards South Cape Beach, New Seabury, the Mews, the residents of South Cape Beach. No service, none, zero. I personally don't necessarily want to see a tower in these people's backyard. However, I don't care if they put a tower in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. They need cell service there. It's not fair to people to have to buy landlines. And someone like me, who's in my car, I work out of my car, it's the ultimate in frustration. It's so frustrating. And I have a lot of health issues. So if I'm up in an area, I might as well be in a black hole in Mars. It is ridiculous there, and it is the only part. Deidre lives in Johns Pond. My sister lives in Johns Pond. They have service. I have service at 19 Captain's Row in Pirates Cove. I have no problem with anything, and I guess now they make cell towers look like trees, I've heard.
Yeah.
And they don't look like these monstrosities that are over in the industrial park. And I'm begging you to please consider cell service, and it doesn't have to be there. You can create another overlay district somewhere. Put it right in the middle of New Seabury. All I'm saying is we need signal. We need to have signal for safety issues and not even convenience. You don't have a landline in your automobile. No one does, that I know of. And it doesn't matter if it's AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, none have signal or service. And so I'm pleading with you to create somewhere in South Mashpee where there is a tower. It can look like a tree. It can look like a house. I don't care what it looks like, so long as we get signal.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Is there anybody else that would like to come on up? Oh, okay. I did recognize the gentleman in the back. Thank you. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Carl Belzic, 56 Tracy Lane. I went to the meeting at the library a few weeks ago, and the maps that the companies, Verizon, I think it was T-Mobile or whatever, presented had all these different colors, maps, and where the services would be. In the present location where it's proposed to have the cell tower behind the fire station, parts of the, like Ms. Muse just spoke about, South Mashpee and along the coastline of New Seabury and down to South Cape Beach, at that present location would not receive the cell tower or cell signals that, this is supposed to solve. So if you could move it, so like to the New Seabury driving range, it would be closer to that. And also in Pompanesett, there were big gaps in the coverage. So by putting it there, you're going to solve some of the problem, but not all the problem.
Okay.
So I think it's, it should be reconsidered of where it's going to be placed.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, may I make a point of order?
I'm just going to let them speak.
Okay.
Yeah. Next person? Oh, yes, gentleman right here. All right, yep.
Not what I wanted to, beginning of what I wanted to say, but I'm also a contractor. I've been a contractor for 40 years. I have a cell phone. I've run my business off a cell phone too. It does, in fact, work in New Seabury. Yesterday, I had inspection yesterday with the plumbing gas inspector. Couldn't find the house. Standing in the front yard on Glen Eagle Drive, talked to him, gave him some instruction of how to find me at the house because there was no number on the house. He was using his cell phone too. So the story that there is no service in that area, absolutely false. I use my phone down there all the time. There's a couple of spots in Pompanesett that doesn't work well, but it always texts. So, you know, I love the stories of how you can't use a cell phone anywhere in South Mashpee. Not true. I use it every day in that area. So, and I don't think that's what this meeting's about. So what I'd like to know from the board is who authored Article 14?
It's my understanding
The selectmen, right?
that it was authored by Tom Fudala.
Okay.
And I don't know if he's in the room. He's hiding. And I did ask him to make sure that this one that's printed in the warrant is the exact one that he had recommended. And his answer is? I didn't have time to look at your past email
Right.
I'm sorry about that.
The reason I drafted this article is because the selectmen had already leased the property, and it was in the permitting process for a special permit at the planning board and at the Cape Cod Commission. And I basically told them, it's not in the overlay district, so you can't do a tower that tall without a zoning change. So I crafted it for Wayne Taylor,
Yep.
the assistant town manager, and they decided to put it on the warrant.
And it's the same one that you had sent us.
Professional courtesy.
Yeah.
I don't care whether
So-
it's approved or not,
so
because I don't live down there, but
I think,
another issue.
I think I'm correct in saying that Tom Fudala submitted it to the Board of Selectmen.
At their request?
No, he, like he just said, that,
So no one requested this. Tom took it upon himself to write this because his opinion is the same as our opinion, that it is not in the cell phone overlay district?
that was, my understanding is he thought there'd be a problem going forward
Well,
in
there is a
permitting it.
problem. There is a big problem, and I don't believe,
And he believes that this warrant article fixes that problem.
well, no, creates another problem, actually.
No, go ahead, so let us know how you feel about,
It creates another problem. It spot zones a piece of residential property into commercial property at the whim of the selectmen, not at the whim of the town of Mashpee and the residents around them. The confusing, it's nice to say words like algorithms and all that stuff like that in your confusing explanation, but the fact is, the way that's worded is pretty explicit, and I think it's not in that zone, overlay zone.
right
And-
now.
Right. It is not in there. And this article just tries a Band-Aid, a proposition that's out there to put it in there. It's a last-minute ditch effort. When was that filed to the selectmen? I don't believe this was something that was in the works until last minute. Let's cut an article off, add this onto the warrant.
So it was definitely before the selectmen on September 11th.
Like when, though? The day before? A week before? A month before?
Yeah, but I can't file an article. The article's filed by the selectmen.
When did you write it?
I don't have that in front of me.
August?
So I'm looking at a memo from Terry Cook from the town manager's office dated August 28th regarding the 2018 October town meeting zoning and road petition taking articles.
Chair, when the moment's opportune, if I may respond to Mr. Ronhoff's comments.
So I don't see it in that memo.
August 28th, it wasn't?
Yeah, do you have the date?
Of the submission to the Board of Selectmen? No, I don't. I know the
Okay.
Board of Selectmen executed that on the September 11th.
I know I know September 11th.
In that meeting, there was no
When
public
did we
comment.
refer that to the Cape Cod Commission? That was before September 11th.
I believe it was May 2nd.
Yeah, May 2nd, so I mean, that had to be back in May when they put
Nope.
this on.
Okay.
No.
Just, I can check one more place.
It was sent to the Cape Cod Commission with the understanding that it was his, Mr. Lear's opinion that it was in that overlay district.
That's right.
Not that it would be
And
rezoned.
And
not that it-
I
yeah.
don't think September 5th, and I could be wrong, I'd have to look at the minutes of September 5th from this planning board. I don't think we talked about it on September 5th.
It wasn't sent to the Cape Cod Commission with the understanding that it would be rezoned.
I could be wrong with my dates, I don't have all the paperwork in front of
Right.
me. That's a good question for the town manager's office.
So this article was written and executed by the Board of Selectmen with no consultation, no input from the board, none?
The planning board received it from Fidala. At some point, I'd have to check. I did make verbal comment, and I think it was not the September 11th meeting, it was the one before, it might have been August 27th, the Board of Selectmen, and I brought it up. If you watched it, you'll see that I brought it up.
In
And,
what way?
and I believe our town manager's comment was, yes, he received it and he was sending it to town council for comment.
You just brought it up, that, the fact that you received it.
And I'm sorry that I wasn't prepared for this question. So there was a review of the town meeting warrant by the Board of Selectmen, and I was in the audience. And I believe it was the last full week in August, whatever that Monday date was. And I had comments about certain things.
Right.
And one of them, I believe, was the correspondence from Mr. Fidala regarding, if we have to, there's somebody who's suggesting that we need this bylaw change, we should, before you close the warrant, take a look at it. And I believe the town manager said, yes, he had received it and he was sending it to town council. And I think, and then I don't know what happened after
Okay.
that.
So at that meeting, it wasn't on the floor for discussion. You just
I
brought
think
it
I
up.
brought it up.
Right, so it wasn't being discussed publicly, and it hasn't been before the select.
The warrant was, that's why I took the opportunity to say something.
Right, so it's the select, so it was never out, public discussion with the selectmen, because they didn't take public comment on the 11th.
You would have to ask them for their packet, their meeting packet. Because I don't get those, so.
Right, exactly.
But the videos are very good to look through.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll look at those then. The zoning changes like this, to be put on a warrant is I know they can be put on by petition, right?
Right.
Is that correct?
Yep, you would have to read Chapter 48, the zoning
Right.
act.
But the selectmen can,
It's my understanding that there are certain bodies that can do that. The Board of Appeals, the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, a property owner can.
okay,
And
ZBA, right?
zoning Board of Appeals.
Board.
And you can have a petitioned article with at least 10 signatures of registered voters. So,
like we did to get the public comment, similar.
no, that's different.
But I mean, similar. it
But
could
yeah,
be
and you,
brought-
you work with your town clerk
Yeah.
for that form that you fill out. And there is a deadline. So for this town meeting warrant, it was July 9th.
Okay.
Do you have anything specifically about this?
Yes, I
Because
do.
I need to wrap it up.
Yep, I do. One of the things that in the description, it says it's replacing something that's outdated. What's outdated? What specifically is outdated?
I wouldn't be
I
able
would
to answer
have to
that.
defer to my predecessor again for this, but I think it's specific to language with regard to locations of the groundwater protective district.
Why isn't it specific? I mean, it just says outdated. It's pretty vague.
So,
I don't know what's outdated. I don't
I'll
think
allow my
anybody here
predecessor
knows
to
what's
speak on it.
outdated.
Mr. Fadala?
Mike, that refers to something else entirely. Like I said, I was in Europe this summer. I came back and I see in the newspaper there's a 150-foot tower proposed in an area that I know is not in the overlay district. I called Wayne Taylor, I said,
That's where you intend.
hey,
in-
you need to fix that.
maintain too.
And that's why I wrote an article. But along with the issue about the overlay district, when I looked at, is
Tom,
this not
maybe-
working?
I don't think it's amplified, so maybe you could talk to the side so that we all hear you.
Is he supposed to work in the room? Excuse me, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just, is this one working?
Speak up.
Because those are speakers up there, they're supposed to amplify all this stuff. As I said, when I came back from vacation, I saw this Cape Cod Commission thing going on, planning board special permit. I knew the property was not in the overlay district. I called Wayne Taylor, I said, hey Wayne, that's not in the district, probably need to fix that as far as the zoning goes if you want to go ahead, because the town had already leased the property to this Blue Sky operation, and they're counting on the income from it and all the rest, and the public safety issues and all the rest. In looking at the description of things that are on the map, that zoning map on the wall there are some statements on it and in the zoning bylaw that say certain things are not shown on the map that actually are. So those other things, the outdated part is just the references in there to other districts, like the groundwater protection district not being on the map and the rest. So that's like an extra little correction. It's not directly related to the wireless thing. Wireless thing is not outdated, it's just, that's a change.
The maps were outdated.
I know it's complicated, but while we were doing an article, I fixed something else while I gave him that article.
I just feel that if you can't just vaguely say outdated things and not be specific about what they are.
Well, I did, I mean,
Well, you
it's
just
in the
said-
article.
Oh, so
Is it in there?
I'm not going to have you go back and forth. We
I don't have
heard
the
your
article,
comment
sorry.
about the outdated. It is in the explanation, and we've
Oh, it is?
noted it.
Okay.
It's in the explanation, the word outdated.
Let's move on.
So there's somebody else that would like to speak.
I just,
Real quick, wrap it up.
Yep, I will. So I feel the same, the comment's already been made about the fact that I really don't see how you can rule on this, on an article that directly impacts the ruling by the Cape Cod Commission, which has not even been, even the subcommittee hasn't even made the ruling yet, although, it's this Cape Cod, the Mashpee Enterprise thinks it has, but, if you're not allowed to even discuss that, how can you rule on that? So I feel that you shouldn't,
Thank you, that's a good point.
approve this.
I'm not going to let people repeat. No. Oh, Michael, what's your,
He can identify himself.
Michael
Name
Ronhart,
or where it lives.
104 DeGrasse Road.
Okay, he didn't identify.
Thank you.
himself, Number one. Number two.
no, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
He
Hi.
basically called me a liar, Mary, and I'm not a liar. And what Glen Eagle Drive may have, a little area of signal, but drive through the Muse, drive down Fairway Lane, drive to all of you see.
I'm Linda Lubelsic. I live at 56 Tracy Lane. To me, I'm learning things tonight that I didn't know. I was coming for the meeting anyway, but it sounds to me like the town made a big oops. They realized at the last minute that they leased property. So you wanted me to speak.
It is not for me, I'm
No,
saying it's going to be for
you wanted me to talk. No, they leased property kind of ahead of the game, and then went, uh-oh, because it's not zoned for what they leased the property for. And am I under the impression that we can't really discuss things until you get the stuff from,
This is a public hearing. So my only limitation is you try to keep it like 3 to 5 minutes. So you've already used 2.5.
All right. The other comment I would like to make is the same one my husband made. When we went to the meeting for the Cape Cod Commission, this doesn't solve the problem. Unfortunately, it doesn't solve the problem.
So I know that our town planner doesn't want you to give us any information from that meeting.
Okay, all right. But but like I said, I think the town made a big oops. They leased property and they weren't supposed to.
Thank you. Sir? Write me a note.
Good evening.
Hi.
My name is Paul Warren. I live at 97 Surf Drive. I'm new to this whole process, so I may make some mistakes in order. I just have one question about other sites that are already in the overlay. Are there other sites available in the overlay in that area for a tower?
No.
None at all? Okay.
Not for this certain situation.
The place to cell tower? Is that publicly owned land or town-owned land, or is it private land that would also be
I
available?
believe it's municipal land. It's where the fire station is.
I know that is, but are there other sites that could be used that are in the plan, that are in the overlay?
So the existing overlay district includes many parcels throughout town that
Okay.
are municipally owned, privately owned, or otherwise.
I guess what I'd like to do then is add my name and to the request that was made that the town, that the planning board and yourself do not recommend this
Okay.
until everything is heard from the commission, as well as basically covering somebody's whoops, as she said.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Evan, what did you want to say?
So I wanted to make one specific comment because much of the comments I'm hearing are directly contrary to recommendation that I made to this planning board and to the Cape Cod Commission with regard to this specific parcel covered in Warrant Article 14 and its inclusion in the wireless facility overlay district. And with a huge amount of respect to my predecessor, the only document I have to operate under is the published zoning bylaw. The language of the zoning bylaw, when analyzed, includes this parcel that has been corroborated by town council and my colleagues at the Cape Cod Commission. So, yes, my predecessor drafted this, and what the intent was, I can't be certain, but as drafted, 101 Red Book Road, in the criteria in the zoning bylaw, is included in the wireless overlay district, and that has been defended by town council in my reports to them. And with that analysis, this body as the permitting authority for any wireless tower, this article wouldn't preclude that it would or would not be approved. That's still within this body's authority to approve. This article doesn't approve any specific project. It just clarifies the ambiguity with the existing language that has been corroborated by my analysis and colleagues at the commission.
All right, thank you, Evan. Hi. You'll be quick, is that what you said?
Thank you.
Hi.
I live in Pompanesett, and it seems like a lot of these people are over Red Brick Road area, as well as Joni that was here, the real estate person that lives down by the beach in South Cape or whatever. Is it true that maybe New Seabury might have the highest point in the whole area?
I don't know.
And that would hit both areas. If we could put it up there in a golf course someplace where it's, away from everything.
Just again,
I'm just saying,
Thank you.
just
Thank
where it
you.
is so high, that's, makes
Thank
sense, and it's in between everything, that's all.
Anyone else? Hi.
Hi, I'm Lisa Murphy.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, I'm from Mashpee. I live at 21 Nahono Road. And first, I'd like to say I completely oppose this. One of the things that I heard you say is that this is already zoned. This is already on the map. So if it's already on the map, why are we rezoning? That doesn't seem to make much sense.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, wait a minute.
No, okay.
Couple more things. And I want to go back to something that you said earlier. You said that this didn't go into the enterprise because it was too full. Is that right?
That's not what I said.
Okay, can you?
I don't publish, or staff does that. So, Evan, you said that the enterprise was too full.
That is too full, if I may. The article was executed by the Board of Selectmen on September 11th. The first public hearing notification requires 2 weeks' notice, 2 weeks prior to today's date. And the Enterprise is a weekly newspaper. It's only published on Friday, so I couldn't give sufficient public notice in the Enterprise, so it was published in the Cape Cod Times.
Okay, so you couldn't give enough notice.
I couldn't give enough notice using the Enterprise's schedule, but we could using any local newspaper, which is the Cape Cod Times.
And do you know what the amount of time is sufficient for the enterprise?
Could you clarify the question?
Well, so I'm looking to find out how long of a notice you need to give to the enterprise in order to get this in.
What the deadline is.
I'm not sure. Included in the board's packet, which will be part of the public record, which will be the entire paper trail of when this was submitted to the Enterprise or the Cape Cod Times, and it was sufficient to be published. The proof of publication is included in the packet.
Okay, so I would like to go back to a trail of emails. This is dated on September 21st. This is also the new article, number 14, regarding the wireless facility overlay district, added by the selectmen last week, which it is my understanding will have a planning board public hearing on October 3rd, which Evan indicated would be advertised in the Cape Cod Times as it was too late to get it into the enterprise. This is dated September 21st, this email.
That's not incorrect. It was too late to get it into the Enterprise.
For October 3rd?
No. Well, as stated, special permit regulations, Chapter 48 requires 2 weeks prior notification in a locally published newspaper. 2 weeks prior to that date is, I don't have it before me, if someone could find it in the paper trail. 2 weeks prior to today. Does anyone have the
I
Enterprise?
have, oh,
You need a calendar?
Have a calendar?
They-
2 weeks.
you need the calendar.
No, I just want the Cape Cod Times proof of publication that's in the packet. May I?
Yep.
So that's Wednesday the 19th, thank you. So this was published on September 19th and September 26th. It requires 2 public notifications. The first of which has to be at least 2 weeks prior. This was published 2 weeks prior on 9/19.
Okay, but again, what you're saying is that it didn't make it into the enterprise on time, and clearly it could have.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I don't think it could
made
have.
into the Enterprise. That's just why we went to the Cape Cod Times.
Okay. No, I'm listening to you. I am listening to you.
It just doesn't feel very transparent.
Can only operate under the regulations that the state
I
and
wouldn't-
municipality govern.
Do you have another item that you would like to address?
The last thing I'd like to say is I frequent into New Seabury, and I have access there.
Okay.
I think what a lot of people are saying is that we believe that, they may need better service there, but let it be in their facility, let it be on their land. If they need it, let them have it.
Thank you.
But don't put it in others' backyards.
Thank you. Look at you. No. I'm gonna, how many people?
One real quick
No,
question.
No.
Same thing.
Eric O'Brien, Blue Castle
No, how
Drive.
many people-
Who signed the lease on that land? Who
Who else wants to talk about this issue? Could you just raise your hand so I can know how to budget the time? There's 3 more. Okay, because we need to move that public hearing back again.
You gotta push that out onto the two?
There's an additional one at was
They need to
8:45.
push
Okay,
do it.
so
We
we
need to
need
push
to
both
push
of them
both Aquay, Highland, public hearings to 8:15.
Okay, I make a motion, we push both Aquay Highlands public hearings to 8:15.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We also have to push the 7:45 town meeting
8:30.
warrant public hearing to
8:30.
8:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Hi. Who signed the lease
I
on a
don't
piece
know.
of property?
That would be
I
a
mean, that's
question.
malfeasance.
That,
and
sir, that would
it's
be
really-
a question for the town manager, because we don't do procurement here.
All right, thank you.
No, and I don't mean to,
Yeah,
push you
that should
off,
be
I just don't
general
have
knowledge
that.
For anybody, I mean, this is the first time I even heard about it being
I'm
leased
sure that
before
if
it was approved.
you talk to them, they'll let you know. There's also
will, thank you.
Combis. There's a website at the state level called Combis.
Okay.
So, if the town of Mashpee is following the recommendations of the state, that RFP would be on Combis. And you could call them as a citizen and ask them for it, or you can ask the town manager for a copy of the RFP.
I will. Thanks for the information. All right.
Hi. Oh. Bye. Is there somebody else had their, go ahead, hi.
Hi, Jewel Blake, 709 Great Neck.
Can you say your name again? And right
Jewel
into the mic.
Blake,
Okay.
709 Great Neck South. I just had a quick question. I am in opposition. I've already stated my reasons to the Cape Cod Commission. I'm not going to repeat them. My question is about clarification. I'm a little confused. I've heard the word special permit, spot zoning, the Board of Zoning of Appeals, and the Planning Board, and I'm confused.
So there's
Where
different,
the
so
overlap
chapter,
is.
so our zoning act is under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A. And you can Google that. The state has a version of the law that has explanations in the margin about what the law does. In there, what I was talking about was who are the entities that can submit a proposed amendment to our zoning bylaw, which is different than our general code and our general bylaws. It's zoning, which is,
Right.
so those are the Board of Selectmen, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, 10 registered voters on the correct petition paperwork, and a landowner.
I'm also confused about when the abutters get notified.
For a zoning change,
Right.
abutters are not notified. Zoning changes go in to, the notification goes into the newspaper of general circulation. I think it's 2 times, 2 weeks before the public hearing. We have town meeting, so those zoning changes have to go on a town meeting warrant, either a special town meeting warrant or an annual town meeting warrant. That warrant is also, whether it's a special or an annual, that document has to be publicized also.
But what about a special permit?
Special permits,
Abutters are
abutters are notified, plus there's something in the
Right.
newspaper too.
Yeah, so when a special permit application was received, abutters within 300 feet of the proposed project
Right.
receive a certified letter. When this, I don't want to comment actually with regard to the project before the Cape Cod Commission, but abutters were notified for that project.
For the initial
Correct.
meeting only, but
So-
not for this new.
Well, so
Warrant.
what we're discussing tonight is a change to the zoning bylaw, which was publicized in the Cape Cod Times as we previously discussed.
That does not go to
But no specific
abutters.
abutter notice.
Correct, because it's not specific to a project.
All right, thank you.
The gentleman in the green jacket? Hi.
Hi, Rick Walden, Geo Lane, Mashpee. Basically, this whole thing is because New Seabury, way back when, has been complaining that they haven't had any cell phone service for years. This whole thing was supposed to be in New Seabury. They squawked and squawked and squawked that they don't want a tower or anything over there. So now, what's the closest thing they're going to do? Let's stick it over by the fire department, and we'll just, so this whole thing is crazy. You're not even supposed to be doing this because the Cape Cod Commission hasn't done anything yet. This is not in the overlay zoning area. This is spot zoning commercial to residential. The cell phone people themselves said this isn't even going to solve New Seabury's problems. Basically, it sounds like you guys are just trying to bail out the town because they leased this property and they screwed up. So I don't even know why we're here. This is like a simple thing. This isn't even going to work. So I don't even know why we're wasting our time.
Thank you, sir. So, is there anybody else? Hi. Because what will happen is I will close the public hearing, and then we have deliberation, the board has deliberation, and We don't take comments after I close the public hearing, okay? Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. My name is Sharon Muller, and recently moved down here at 693 Great Neck Road South. What kind of research went into where would be the best location for the tower? I'm hearing properties were selected, and I had heard about the new Seabury, and that those people did not want it, all right? Then all of a sudden, I moved down here, and it's going to be in my backyard. All right, if it has to be, and emergency needs as well as phone service, then I have to weigh that in my mind. But having had the problem up in New Hampshire, where I came from, we actually got into, because of land there, considering church steeples, again, to go the highest point. If we don't do that, to what a few other people have said, and I have worked for AT&T, you will not get the service you need and you want. And it's going to be costly with what you're going to end up with. Plus, health issues. I'm sorry, I think there are some, and I think we all need to be aware of this and do due diligence, not only for those of us standing here, those visiting us, grandchildren, relatives, and the future people. So maybe we need to just stop, look back, make sure out of that whole map, we have selected the best location and fix maybe perhaps the oopses and move forward with a better decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for Evan. So, you can come up towards, if you're gonna, yeah, I'm just gonna ask Evan a question first. The planning board can't take any action on a matter that's before the Cape Cod Commission as a DRI.
Correct.
What is the penalty if we do?
It's illegal.
I don't have an answer to that.
I know it's illegal, but what's the penalty?
Well, I mean, it's illegal, that should be enough. I mean, being illegal should be enough not to do it.
That's exactly right.
You know, I mean, I don't know what you need a penalty for. It's illegal. We can't do it till the Cape Cod Commission comes back to us.
You have to
So
remember.
I think
that's
this article is premature. I mean,
Well, you have to remember that this article is with
okay,
regard to the
so
zoning
I have
bylaw,
another
not a project.
question.
Yes.
Oh, shoot. It'll come back to me. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Happy to answer any questions you have. But, yeah, so just remember that this warrant Article 14 is with regard to an amendment to the zoning bylaw. It's not with regard to the project before the commission right now. That's not what this hearing, it's not within the scope of this public hearing.
But it could be argued that it is.
It could
And
be
I'm
argued,
concerned
but
about that.
I would urge the
Okay,
board as
now,
this
here's
project's
my
coming
question. Here's my question. All right. It's on the town meeting warrant, okay? It's going on the town meeting warrant, okay? It's already there, right? Okay. This board has to,
make a recommendation.
no, it has to hold a public hearing. I'm not sure that we have to make a recommendation.
We can say we're not making a recommendation.
You can vote
There's
to
three things.
endorse, to not endorse, or take no action.
Take no action, yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. So, hi.
Pretty clear that things aren't going so well.
What are you talking about? I thought this was going to be done in 10 minutes.
I'm Diane Scannell, I live
Hi.
at 108 DeGrasse Road. My back deck, sitting on my back deck, I would be looking directly at the tower. It's obvious what side I'm on. I would not like to see this happen. Does not make sense to me that we are rezoning something that's already zoned. Why would we be rezoning?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Deirdre.
Hi, Deirdre Pond Circle. Grealish, sorry. along Mr. Walden's comment that it's premature because we don't have a ruling yet, which won't come till the 18th, which was said by Mrs. Roanoke. If you were going to take a vote on the article on town meeting, which is what you're supposed to be doing, giving recommendations about articles, tabling, a recommendation to table an article is a recommendation.
That's correct.
Because it can't be acted on without the proper channels, and by town meeting, the 15th, we will not have proper channels. Therefore, that is something you could do without doing, Solomon, okay? That's my suggestion.
Well, I just want to welcome our youngest attendee ever, who's being so good. So, right ahead. It's just like, what is it, the Australian or the New Zealand Parliament? Yes. Right? Hi.
Good evening. Dean Barron, 6 Overlook Knoll Road. I have installed cell towers, and there's a key element that I haven't heard at all, and there's a fall zone when these towers crash. I'm familiar with the fire station that you're proposing to put this cell tower at. We've witnessed these towers sometimes catch on fire internally and melt and crash. The last one was televised on all the TV stations, happened in Wellesley, Massachusetts, on a commercial site on Route 9. They were doing regular maintenance. They were welding to the tower. The cables inside caught on fire. It crashed. Has a fall zone been anticipated for this tower at this location?
Yeah.
Can't discuss.
I think that's information, right? That's before the Cape Cod Commission at this point.
Secondly,
And I think it would come to this board as part of the special permit.
Our zoning bylaw speaks about fall zones.
okay, so are there any residences near this fire station?
There are none. If the tower were 150 feet tall, that's what's being proposed. There is nothing within the 150 feet, 150-foot wall.
Except the fire station itself.
I'm,
So you're excluding
Yeah, so
one of the
we're-
most important municipal buildings we have in rescue, right next to the tower. Sir, Mr. Cummings, is that right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
we don't have, we don't have that, though, Joe does, but not the rest of us, so that question's kind of out of our purview. If and when we get to the special permit, that will be the time to comment on that.
Okay.
Not that we're not gonna have it in our minutes, but,
Lastly,
yes.
elevation, as one of the previous people spoke about, clearly would be far superior in the golf course. If it fell, if it needs service, would not impact anyone. Even if it burnt down, no one would care.
Well, it could impact the golfer.
I suppose, if you were that guy at that moment. But I thought this was a serious conversation about safety,
You're right.
and I didn't think we were going to be melancholy about this. If you're familiar with the tower I'm talking about, it wasn't a fun time.
Okay.
And we did watch it burn to the ground.
Okay,
But thank you for your time.
thank you. Hi, go ahead.
I wasn't going to talk.
You weren't gonna talk. Hi.
I'm Brian Baumgartel, 119 DeGrasse Road. I'm also Chair of the Board of Health, so thank you, Madam
Hi.
Chair, for listening to everyone tonight, members of the board. There is one piece of information I wanted to bring up this evening. It's been in relation to that. This particular change to the overlay district is in no way related to this particular project. I have in my hand a copy of the draft decision by the Cape Cod Commission, which was posted publicly on their website. I obtained it this afternoon. One of their recommendations is, in fact, to propose an amendment for the overlay district. So to say that this is totally unrelated is bull. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a thing on the tower falling. It says there are no buildings within 300 feet of the proposed site of the facility.
That's not true. About the fire station, is that a building?
Well, they're saying it's not going to fall on the fire station.
we should not be commenting on this, on the proposed project, Joe.
No, we
We
shouldn't.
should not be commenting on the proposed project.
The what?
We should not make any comment with regard to the project before the Cape Cod Commission.
You're going to get me up here, you know it,
I
right?
know, I know. Hi, how are you?
I was ready here earlier.
As far as, Peter Michelson, 120 DeGrasse Road, plus I own 0 DeGrasse Road and 110 DeGrasse Road.
Okay.
So my property value is going to get a really little nice hand grenade right in the middle of all of it. I live right next door to Dennis, whose beautiful child you're talking about is going to get fried in his back deck because of the radiation off of this tower. So I'm very much against this proposal. New Seabury had one that was going to go up down in New Seabury. They all got together and they voted it down because they didn't want it in their backyard. But they wanted a fire station, they didn't want it in their backyard, so they put it in my backyard. I was out working in my backyard one day and guys were walking through the neighborhood doing engineering work.
Yep.
So now, you also, they made recommendations, this is an engineering issue. The property line that they measure so many feet from, that does not exist in a land court recorded plan. 0 DeGrasse Road, his property at 104 DeGrasse Road, they have never had a certified plan done and recorded at the registry. Whatever the parcel they're cutting out of, Charlie, maybe he did the engineering work for the fire department, that was cut out of a piece of property that there is no certified plan for. So you're kind of hit and missing when you say you're 150 feet from the property line. That's really questionable if you really are or not. So
Thank you, sir.
that's it. Yeah, and also, you talk about not with 300 feet. His property is developable, my property is developable. You got to take the fact that I can develop my property into consideration here, too. So we are within the 300 feet, or even closer. So I could be 150, I could be 200 feet
Are
to
you
this tower.
talking about an abutters notice? Like, why are you bringing that up? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Well, you just said there's no buildings within.
Okay,
And
all right.
his property is developable. He could put a house, right
Okay.
here, the guy in the yellow shirt, I knew it was yellow. My house is yellow. I just painted the house yellow.
Okay, no, now I understand, sir. Okay,
He could put a house on his property, and I could put a house on my property, and both of them are a lot closer than 300 feet to that tower, so.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I would love to close this public hearing.
I think we should.
Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken that would like to make a brief comment about something new? Okay. I mean, like 30 seconds.
I just, maybe I should be able to answer this question, but you talked about it, there's a lease already signed.
All that information would be with the town manager's office.
But doesn't that have to, in order to enter into commercial lease with an outside entity, doesn't have to be voted on in some way?
No, chief procurement officer can sign that without a public. But typically procurement of that type, such as leasing land, selling land, buying land, has to be publicly noticed. And that's why I referred somebody to Combis, or the town manager. And I believe the town manager is our chief procurement officer. So, okay. So I'm going to accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearings of the wireless overlay district.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. You want to do the vote now?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a vote that we don't make a recommendation to town meeting because it
Make a
could
motion,
cause
we don't
a...
make a recommendation to town on this article.
Second.
Should we say that it's because it's
Because
with
they
the
should
Cape
put
Cod
it in,
Commission?
from
Or-
my opinion, they should put in New Seabury.
Well, that would be then, but why would we not make any recommendation at all?
There's too many unanswerable questions tonight. We didn't have a map to show the people. We should have had a map. We don't know who leased it. And there's a lot of too many questions.
So do you want to not make a recommendation or make a recommendation not to approve?
I make a recommendation not to approve.
Okay. So, all right. So,
I make a recommendation
right
we
now,
not
on
approve this article.
there's a motion. All right, there's a motion
Second.
to make a recommendation to town meeting to not approve this proposed bylaw change.
Right. Do we have a second?
Okay, a second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I just have one
What, go ahead, discussion.
I live in South Cape Beach, Mashpee. I have cell phone. My son and my wife don't. I don't know why, but my phone works. But there's a lot of people that don't work. And like one of the persons said here, New Seabury's kind of high, has a couple of high places, and it would kind of take care of all the area. At that meeting with the Cape Cod Commission, the cell company said it won't solve all the problems. Maybe if the cell tower was in New Seabury in the high location on the golf course, which don't affect anybody, it would take care of the whole area, and that's where I'm.
Okay. So, all in favor of recommending to town meeting to not approve? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous.
Okay, now Walkway Bay, that's
Now Walkway Bay.
all these people are gonna stay here.
All right. So, seeing that the appointed time arrived, let's take a 5-minute, should we take a 5-minute break because we lost Dennis? Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. 81W of Massachusetts General Laws, the Mashpee Planning Board will hold a public hearing to consider amending the approval of the subdivision known as Aquay Highlands in order for it to remain an approved subdivision. The original Aquay Highlands subdivision approval was granted by the Mashpee Planning Board on May 1st, 2014, and was filed with the Barnstable Registry of Deeds on June 11th, 2014, in Plan Book 654 and page 21 by the original applicant BCDM LLC. So I received correspondence today from Ernie Virgilio regarding a request to have time before the board to speak. I'm wondering if it's okay if we start with Ernie.
Sure.
There is, come on up. So just to let everybody know, there is no project proponent here tonight to explain this. This is a previously approved.
Ernie's not here. I don't see him.
Ernie's here. Ernie's here.
Oh, there
But
he
he's
is.
not the project proponent. I'm just clarifying that Ernie is a member of the public that's speaking about this. This is an already approved subdivision and special permit. Because of things that are happening in the field, the planning board is considering modifying or even revoking the approval of said subdivision, because we're on the subdivision part. We're going to do the subdivision part, and then we roll all the comments into the special permit part. Okay, hi.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Ernie Virgilio, Blue Castle Drive. I first of all would like to say that I completely agree with Mr. Morales' letter and Mr. Rowley's recommendations. I find that to be, basically including what represents somewhat of a condition or some conditions that certainly need improvement or reconstruction if it's felt that that's necessary. I'm not up here to complain about anything. I'm simply up here because I live at 7 Blue Castle Drive. I knew what I had for a water problem when I moved there. I took care of it. It was okay. It was never a problem. After the road construction, after the project took place, I now have a very serious water problem. And it has not been, it is not working in the fashion that I believe it, and I'm not one to say whether it's construction that was completed incorrectly, construction that's not completed, which I have said in the past, or what the reason may be, but I do know that I'm getting water, and enters my garage when there is a very bad storm and heavy, heavy rain. I have video of that. However, as I said, I'm not up here to make a requirement or recommend anything. I'm up here for you to simply understand the problems that I have with this project. There is, as I said, Mr. Rowley's letter certainly gives some direction to, I hope, what can be a matter to be completely cleared up or put in working order that it should be. Otherwise, I really, Madam Chairman, don't have anything else to say. Thank you for hearing this and hearing it again and again. And I certainly appreciate the hard work that everyone is doing, and hopefully we can resolve the situation.
Thank you. I was gonna, if it's okay with the planning board members, go to Charlie and Evan, because they had some conversations today with town council.
Take the lead, Evan.
Sure. So Charlie and I had a conference call this afternoon with Pat Costello, who's town council to Mashpee. And we specifically spoke with him with regard to what the planning board, what the best possible mechanism or tool or language could be to amend the special permit and subdivision approval, because these two approvals kind of communicate with one another. A few takeaways for me, and then I'll probably defer to Charlie to complete our discussion here. First, just with regard to notice, town council corroborated that we provided adequate notice to butters. I provided written notification to the developer, Bayberry Building. Jacques Morin is the trustee of that company that returned undeliverable to the planning board. I specifically asked him with regard to that notice, and he didn't foresee any issues with how we notified the developer. He's not here this evening. I did provide a phone call to him this afternoon to make sure that he was aware that the hearings were happening. The council received from Attorney Costello was that based on the deliberations we've had to last week and to continue this evening, were that the planning board is empowered to make any proposed added conditions or modifications to existing conditions of the special permit or the subdivision approval. The recommendation was to continue to hear comment this evening, to close the public hearing, and to deliberate for the next week and provide draft language of updated conditions or an updated modification to the special or a modification to the special permit to be acted upon at a future meeting. And those are my primary takeaways. I think I'm going to pass that to Charlie to either corroborate or correct anything I may have misunderstood from town council.
When we spoke today, I tried to explain to town council that there were two separate issues that we're dealing with as far as the work is concerned, and also the fact that we're dealing with two separate approvals, one of which was the subdivision, the second was the special permit. The subdivision is being heard first tonight so that you can deliberate what to do in terms of trying to get the developer to move on the issue to correct the drainage or complete the drainage, especially, and the pavement and so forth in that section of Blue Castle Drive, which is near Great Neck Road South. The other section, which is on Carriage Drive, which is the connector between Blue Castle and DeGrasse, is a separate issue. In my way of thinking, it's slightly less important in terms of the impacts to the neighborhood than the one on Blue Castle is. In receiving the packet tonight, I note that we got an email from Mr. Moran today talking about certain things, saying that he expects to complete all the drainage within the next couple of weeks, or certainly by the end of the month. The drainage installation that was at Blue Castle was effectively completed, but the work surrounding the drainage area and the paving of Blue Castle and the installation of the berm along Great Neck Road South has not been completed. That's where the critical issue is. If those things aren't done, there's no guarantee that the subsurface infiltration system that's there in front of Mr. Virgilio's house won't fail, because if they introduce sediment into that and it's got stone around the outside, if the stone gets plugged up, it's not going to allow the water to infiltrate into the ground. So those things are of primary importance, and I think need to be set up in some way in any modification that you do that would suggest that they need to take care of those issues within a certain amount of time. Right now, the development is under a covenant. The covenant essentially means that the road needs to be completed to the satisfaction of the board before any lots can be released for development. In Mr. Moran's letter tonight, he says that he would anticipate bonding the top coat to ensure the completion, as it does not make sense to install it prior to all 14 homes being developed. What's out near Blue Castle and Great Neck Road South has nothing to do with the location of the houses. Yeah. It's a complete separate area. And he suggests also that all the work would be completed prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. That may be in the special permit. But the subdivision control law says that you can't even convey a lot unless the road is completed or you've bonded it. And in the case of a bond or security, that could either be a tri-party agreement, or it could be a cash bond, or it could be a performance bond, typically a time limit is put on that particular performance so that you are assured that the construction gets done within a timely fashion. When you stretch those out without a time limit, you could have a security bond or a cash bond that, if you let it go long enough, due to inflation and interest rates, might not cover the construction if you try to pick that money up. So what I believe you need to deliberate, in my view, with respect to the portion that's in front of Mr. Vigilio's house, is to require, under a modification of the special permit, that that work be done within a certain amount of time. The other work, which is outlined in my letter, which I gave to you from last time, that isn't necessarily as critical at the moment, but it certainly needs to be addressed before lot releases are done within the subdivision, because you can't let that stay the way it is without some correction. And to assume that it'll take care of itself is not the proper thing. I can understand not doing the top coat on that portion of Blue Castle, which is way beyond what we're talking about, but certainly that front portion should be done. The loam and seed should be there. If it had been hydroseeded when they first put the loam down, you might actually have some grass growing now. But there may be a question about the depth of the loam. There are some issues with respect to the paved waterway. So there's a whole host of things that, if Mr. Marin would do that up front and get it done, it would take care of that issue. And the rest of the drainage issues on Carriage Drive could come along at a later date. And you don't necessarily have to address those so much in a timely fashion as you do the first part. I didn't give the detailed explanation to your town council over the phone with Evan that I've just sort of described to the board, but I did say that perhaps the thing to do would be to decide on the language of a proposed modification, get it in draft form, which Evan could produce and get it together and give to town council between now and the next meeting, so that if it was approved at the next meeting, then you could submit the modification to the town clerk and start the 20-day appeal period that's necessary on that. So that's sort of the way it was left. That town council would weigh in on the draft language that you would produce through Evan. He would take a look at it, and then he would have his comments ready to bring back to the next meeting in 2 weeks, so that you could make a final vote on the changes.
So you said that the Blue Castle drainage was completed, but the work around the drainage was not.
I was there when they installed the subsurface drainage portion of it, but a lot has happened since that time. There's been some infiltration, there's been some erosion. The binder course of the pavement was put in without the benefit of the rolled berm across the end of Great Neck Road South. So there are things that are up in the air that impact what they did. And to leave it unfinished is only going to cost them more money in the long run if they don't fix it now.
And it's not just the rolled berm.
No.
It's finished the road.
The rolled berm would certainly help, because the initial design was not to incorporate any runoff from Great Neck Road South. Putting that rolled berm in means that it forms a gutter line so the water can't run over the surface onto Blue Castle. And it's just the Blue Castle pavement that infiltration area was designed for. Much smaller than taking all the runoff from a good portion of Great Neck Road South.
Now, is that called out in your letter to us? Or is?
I don't know that I put it in quite as much detail, but a good portion of it is. And the recommendations I made were for a pretty specific inspection procedure, and then to complete that portion of it for Blue Castle.
I'm sorry.
Should be there, along with the photographs that I sent to Evan.
Do you have that in front of you, or?
Got
So
it
what
somewhere.
what I'm just trying to, you're saying that some work you feel should be done right away and some can wait.
Yeah, yes, that portion that's on Carriage Drive, although it has problems because it was allowed to get damaged due to runoff, needs to be corrected. There's no question about that. but it's not as imperative as the one that is at Blue Castle.
okay.
Because there are no other houses that are impacted by that particular development. The drainage area for Blue Castle impacts neighbors directly. The one on Carriage Drive is sort of separated. There are catch basins there. There are two areas involved there, but they don't necessarily impact direct abutters the way that they do on Blue Castle and Great Neck Road South. That's not to say it's not important, because from what I saw, there's some real damage that's been done, and there's been erosion off the pavement that's on Carriage Drive as well.
Yeah.
So he's got some corrective work to do and some inspection work to do to make sure that those infiltration areas haven't been damaged, because if they are, they've got to be rebuilt.
I mean, I'm kind of feeling that we should put a deadline for all these things to be
Well,
fixed.
I like to put a deadline on, where Ernie Virginia lives, like November 5th, have this all done by November 5th. And the other part, we can put by the spring, because the plants are gonna be closed in December. You know, if they need some time, I mean, they,
November 15th, Dennis, is a usual date that's used, I think, by Mass Highway, maybe by Catherine also.
yeah, that's why I said November 5th.
Yep.
To have that.
Okay.
For Ernie Virgilio. And then the other one, we can wait, like Charlie said, there's no houses there, it's not affecting anybody. The only one that's affected is the contractor that may have to dig that all up and redo it again, because if you look at it now, Charlie, there's probably a foot of silt all in that thing.
Yep.
And now the road's actually gonna be washing away, because it's
That's right.
underground in it, you know?
Right.
I go by there every day
Okay.
and drive up and down. The last rainstorm, I went by Ernie's house, and I could see the water coming off of South Cape Road, you know,
Right.
coming right into Ernie's thing.
So you're saying that the Carriage Road, you'd like to set a date in the spring?
Spring, but Ernie Virgilio's by November 5th, or we're gonna revoke his permit. I mean, can we put it like that? I mean, I wanna put some power into this, not,
Just make sure that you understand that in Mr. Moran's letter, he's suggesting the top coat be bonded. That's not going to solve Ernie's problem. Just putting money against that isn't going to work. If he were to do that, you could still put a time limit on it, and if he doesn't act, the town could then take that money and do the work that's necessary.
oh, all right, so we should have him put the bond?
Well, that choice is his.
Oh.
It's always the applicant's choice as to what he wants, whether it's a covenant or whether it's security or how he does it. I think at this point, and I'm only speaking as an engineer, not as an attorney here, that probably the best thing would be to modify it to say that that portion of the drainage and the final paving and all of the work surrounding the Blue Castle, Great Neck Road South project needs to be done by November 5th.
All right.
And if you want to put in there that not providing that response could result in a revocation of the subdivision.
So we'll have Evans kind of write something up like that for our next meeting?
That's what we talked about on the phone.
Good.
And if the board is amenable to that, you could take a tentative vote to have Evan draft that language, which would be ready for the next meeting for you to review and approve.
I make a motion, we have Evan draft a proposal, what we just spoke about for our next meeting, and then we can take action
Second?
on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd like to see some draft language about Carriage Road, too,
Well, the whole project.
Yeah.
with the deadline, the spring deadline.
Okay, you got that, Evan?
Got it.
Okay.
I know we're not in the hearing for the special permit yet, but the same sort of language probably should be introduced into the special permit with, it's blended together, as has been already said.
Yep.
So whatever is said in the special permit is also said in the subdivision approval.
So I'd like to continue the the public hearing on this matter until
The 17th?
the 17th. Is there anything on the agenda?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, I make a motion, we continue this public hearing until October 17th at 7:10.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair opens up the public hearing for Aquay Highlands subdivision discussion and possible action to modify the special permit. I'd entertain a motion that all the I'm sorry, was there anybody here from Aquay Highlands that wanted to speak on the subdivision piece? Yeah. I'm sorry, say your name again?
Mike Ronhock.
Mike, okay.
104 Grass. I just so I can understand, one of the things is to revoke the permit. Is that correct?
Yeah, by
Awesome.
pursuant to Mashpee subdivision rules and regulations and Chapter 41, Section 81W of Massachusetts General Law, we can amend the subdivision.
Amend it? Okay, so change
Amend it,
the structure of it and put in
time
constraints and
limits.
stuff like, okay. I didn't understand if it was, if you meant it could be revoked, and if it could be revoked, what happens to the subdivision after that, but if it's just amendments to it, I understand.
Yeah, but I don't think we're contemplating revoking it at this time.
Clarifying comment? The law would allow for revocation, but I don't think the intention of this board is to do so.
No, 'cause we don't want to leave the project hanging up in the air for another 4 or 5 years, you know.
So I have the special permit portion, the public hearing and the special permit portion open. So I'd entertain a motion to take all of our comments and information that we received during our public hearing on the subdivision to be rolled into this portion of the public hearing.
So be.
Second.
Yeah, you can come up. Hi.
Rick Walden, Gia Lane, Mashpee. I mean, to give this guy more and more time is absolutely ridiculous. Like when you just mentioned about going 4 or 5 years, this has been going for 4 years. Haney had it in the beginning, and last week when that Mr. Dorsey, I never met him in my life, but when he was saying that back then the place looked like a war zone when Haney was doing the work, and everybody was, oh man, this guy Moran's going to take over and everything's going to be great. I walked down DeGrasse Road, up Carriage Road, down Blue Castle, every day of the week, 3 times a day with my dog. That place over there looks like a bomb hit it. And as far as, I mean, I feel bad for Ernie. I've known Ernie for 100 years, and the water's coming down on his end and all this other stuff, but fine and dandy, you want to take care of that end. But, I mean, the people on DeGrasse Road, I don't live on DeGrasse Road, but there's plenty of people who live on DeGrasse Road, and last year, you mentioned to the builder, have you ever even talked to anybody on DeGrasse Road and even met these people?
Yeah.
And he said no.
Right.
Right to you, right? That was last year. They don't even care about what's going on over there. Like when you're saying everything's washed out, I mean, those retention ponds, I don't even know why we have those retention ponds. Those are just going to be swimming pools for mosquitoes. I mean, that's supposed to be if you have a lot of tar and you've taken out trees and you don't have drainage the right way, you put in retention ponds. So now they got one big retention pond. Well, they got 2 retention ponds on Carriage Road where there's going to be 4 houses. No retention ponds on Blue Castle where there's going to be 10 houses. So DeGrasse Road, all the houses on DeGrasse Road, Tracy Lane, Gia Lane, all those houses were built, no retention ponds. You drive around Mashpee, you don't see retention ponds everywhere. So why do we have to have that first retention pond right there it's right on the edge of DeGrasse Road. But as far as everything washing out, and every time I stop and talk to the contractors, and I say to them, you guys are like a bunch of big kids. All you do is move around piles of dirt. And I know where every pile of dirt has been because I've been looking at it all summer. There's 5 piles of dirt over here. Then 3 days later, they're over there. And I asked these guys, what the heck are you moving all this dirt from one side to the other? Well, I don't know. I've only been here a week. We've only been here a week. We're not the contractors that did this before. So it sounds like this guy is going through contractor after contractor. And if you give this guy till November 5th, fine, you want to straighten out Ernie's job, good and dandy. But you're going to wait till next spring, so now we're into 5.5 years. You guys have got to come down and put your foot on this guy's throat, or this is just, the sand blows around. I mean, it just looks like a bomb hit it. And I mean, like you said last time at the meeting, he's got those rocks, he's got the bluestone dust, he's got all that crap right in the middle of the road. I mean, I don't live on Blue Castle, but it's just, it's fairly evident this guy doesn't care about anything. He's just jerking you guys around, and that's all I want to say.
Just one point on that. When a subdivision is approved, and even a special permit is approved, the developer has time under the statutes in order to complete that. And typically, when a covenant is put on, and again, it's the applicant's choice. That's in the state law. It isn't up to this board to define which kind of security you're going to expect him to do. It's up to him. He chose the covenant, which means that so long as the subdivision is alive under the current zoning, and that's a total of 8 years unless zoning changes, if zoning changes, he can basically do it at his own leisure. What he could. So I'm just saying that that's the way that the statutes are set up. What we're trying to do is encourage him as best we can. There isn't an awful lot that can be done except to encourage him to do that first part and know that before anything gets done on Carriage Drive, any of the houses that are there, before any kind of a lot release is done, that he takes care of that issue on Carriage Drive. One of the reasons that the pavement is in danger of washing down at the corner there that you're talking about is that the binder is just in place and there's no berm there. If the berms were in place and the top was there, it would have captured the water into the catch basin, and if the shoulders were all loamed and seeded, it would have been much better. Those areas you're talking about are not retention ponds in the normal way you would think of them. The water discharges in there and flows over the surface, but if you look on both ends, there are 2 raised catch basin grates. As soon as the water gets up to the level of that grate, it drops in and goes into the subsurface system that's on either end. So it's not intended to make a big pond that's going to end up with mosquito problems. That's not the way those drainage areas are designed or intended to work. But they do need to be fixed so that they work properly. And that's the question which we don't have the answer to because of the significant runoff and sedimentation that took place. There was a big area that was in the middle of Carriage Drive that went right down into that area.
That dirt's going to wash right out from under all that tar, that's going to collapse.
That's right. That's why, at some point, that all has to be taken care of before anything gets released, or even if any security gets posted or suggested, as Mr. Moran said he wants to do with the rest of it. That's got to be taken care of. You just can't let it sit. But there are only certain things the planning board can do at this point in time.
Okay. You're just going to put it off till next spring. I mean, just so you keep giving them this one.
That was a recommendation of the board. I did not put any particular time limit on that second one because I felt that it was a little bit less important in the short term than the first one was. Not to say that it isn't important, it is, but that it's a little less important than the first one. If it encourages Mr. Moran to do the first part and put the second part off into the spring, that might be the best thing to do.
I just want to acknowledge that Bayberry Builders, that's Jack Moran.
Jacques, yes.
Jacques. He sent Evan an email. It's in our package, Wednesday, October 3rd. Subject is Aquay Highlands. And he was talking about his communication with Evan, and that, Evan addressed the noticing of him. He talks about that a little bit, and that he wanted to meet with this board in early November. But I think that, I don't think we can wait. I think
we gotta send it.
That we're not gonna wait till November. The next thing he does, he sent another email. That first one was today at 6:32 p.m. The other one was at today, October 3rd, at 5:47 p.m. regarding a status. He gave us a status. I think that, Charlie, you have that email and that it does not resolve your concerns.
No, if he's talking about just anticipating bonding the top coat of pavement, he doesn't specify whether it's the main portion of it or whether it includes the piece down in Blue Castle. But in any event, putting bonding on that first section doesn't solve the problem at all.
And then we already mentioned the email from Ernie Vigilio asking for time tonight to talk. Can you just pass those down to Jen? Now, we're on the special permit, and we did get correspondence. Can I want to finish this so I don't forget it. From law offices of John Polini, who represents Henry Barr. Oh, you have those already? And Ellen Brady, remember they were here last time?
Oh, yeah.
Ellen Brady,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
She talked- Oh, okay, and they talked about, in the letters, there's this thing about trying to set up the homeowners association. And so the special permit has something in there about it. And I wonder if we should contemplate putting a timeline on that too. Because there was some time, there was, I believe, there was effort to participate in a homeowners association, and the developer was reluctant to include the people that were living or have property along the part of the road that's not paved, and is telling them, you're not gonna be part of the homeowners association unless you pave the property.
Yeah.
And it's all hearsay, I don't have Mr. Moran, but I'm just wondering if we should just put a timeline on when he has to set up that homeowners association. Maybe by the spring?
Well, yeah.
Put it-
Well, that'll only be when he starts building his houses though, right?
Oh,
I mean, why would he set it up now unless, I mean, because the people on Blue Castle, if I was on Blue Castle, I wouldn't want to pay any money for that road, you know?
okay,
So I don't know how we can force them people to do anything.
okay.
I think,
Evan?
I think that's the primary issue for those folks who aren't necessarily included in the subdivision but have property on Blue Castle Drive, is that there's the question of whether or not the roadway in front of their homes is adequate to the regulations of subdivision control law. So whether or not they if they buy into a homeowners association, if it exists, someone still has to complete that work to make their homes buildable. And I think that's the question that has to be answered. I don't know if it's done through the special permit.
So
or
I'll
through
give you
the
this
homeowners
copy of the special permit, it's section 34. I don't know if you want to just take it and maybe show it to your attorney.
Yeah, or actually, could I?
Yeah, and then, yes, I recognize you, but I'm going to give that to you right now. That's item 34, just to make sure your attorney has seen that. Hi.
Yeah, I'm Bob Betts, 56 Summersea Road, and Ellen Brady can't be here, but we're the ones that have a building lot on 20 Blue Castle. And actually, the reason I'm speaking is I was wondering if there's a possibility that we can have an agreement with somebody other than Jock and whatever association he's going to be doing in the future. I mean, there's people that live on the road already, and they've been maintaining that road for years, and we're willing to contribute more than what they already do. And we don't really care exactly what that is as long as it's fair. But we just want to be out of this discussion. We just want to because you told us that that's something that you asked us to do, to come up with this agreement, and we went as far as we could. We had the attorney work on it for us to try to get a response from Jock, and so here we are. And it's we just want to end this piece of the conversation between us and the road.
I mean, I'd be amenable to that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand why they even have to worry about it. I mean, when they first came here, remember the people that lived there didn't want no road. They liked the way it was, with the gravel.
No, I don't want it paved,
Yeah.
right? But there has to, I think we put it in the special permit because we wanted there to be some mechanism that things were maintained.
I thought it was more like well, they did used to maintain, I don't know if they still do, the guy on the end.
Yeah.
When we kind of argue with me and you, but he usually plows it and stuff, and he kind of maintained it. I mean, I don't know what else we can have him do.
I mean, we're willing to, agree to whatever's fair, whatever fair and reasonable for maintaining a road. We prefer not to work with this developer. We'd rather work with the existing people that have been there and do it.
Yeah, Evan, go ahead.
So, as owners in front of that stretch of roadway, you have every right to improve the road, that strip of roadway, so that it is deemed adequate access by this board, and you can build your retirement home. You don't have to use Jacques Morin. You could perhaps get into an agreement with your neighbors and put that contract out to anyone. But the building commissioner, Mike Mendoza, is one who has to determine whether or not you have adequate access to a public way, which would be Great Neck South. So it would have to be improved to a certain condition. You can contract with any contractor to make those improvements to the roadway, so that you can build in your house.
Well, that part of the discussion, we've been going around and around on that, on paving versus not paving, and they pay part of it, not the other. I mean, that's already, I think that's already been beaten down.
So
you
my
know,
discussions
yeah.
with Ellen are that it's very difficult to shoulder the cost of the improvements that are required of the roadway, which is why there was some negotiation that everyone hoped to have had with the developer.
Oh, yeah.
to
Well, the
improve that.
developer came to us initially when we first found out he was developing, and he made offers, he said, oh, you know, if we give him $175,000, he'll pave right up to the front of our home. He said, you know, and now it's down a much lower number, the last number he's coming out with, but it's still, you know, it's still a lot of, you know, he's looking
It's a
for a
lot of
lot of
money.
money, and we don't want it.
It's important to remember that your lots are not necessarily subject to the subdivision approval. So you can improve that roadway any which way you please. I think this board was just hoping to find an avenue for you to work with the developer of the area. It's one such option, but not your only option.
Okay.
It is
yeah.
a substantial cost to improve the roadway.
Well, right now, it's my understanding, we need to focus on getting this maintenance agreement. And, you know, we don't feel it's important, but, but we were told here that it was, that was something we needed to do.
Charlie's gonna.
So
Yeah,
so what do we do? Yeah.
Just a couple of things. I think we have to be careful, Evan, about saying they can improve the road any way they want to. There are certain requirements there, but I think that Section A of paragraph 34, it says the Aquay Highland Homeowners Association may admit an owner of property. So unless that association is in place,
Okay.
I don't think there's a mechanism for allowing anybody to agree with it. I mean, that's in there, and it's up to the developer himself to establish that association. He, as I understand those kinds of things, is the 100% owner of the association until he begins to sell lots, and at that time, the new lot owners become a part owner until all the lots are sold out. And then he sort of steps aside, and the lot owners then manage the association. But you've got to have that document in place before you could admit anybody else.
But even if you're a homeowner of a parcel outside of the approved subdivision?
Yes, because it says it may admit any owner of property situated on Blue Castle Drive as a full member. But the association has to be in place to allow that to happen.
All right, so it's not something we have to do now. But that dirt road, it's part of the subdivision plan that is improved, right? Isn't it?
There is, all the way from Great Neck Road south to the end of Blue Castle, where the pavement stops now, is improved in some fashion, from one end to the other. The piece that's left dirt and not paved has to be widened. It has to have a certain crown. It has to have certain material in the road itself, and it also has to have the drainage swales on both sides. None of that has been done yet. They put a little bit of material in the road, and it's taken up some of the washboard, but the construction is nowhere near complete. It really hasn't been started yet.
All right, is there any other, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just wondering, okay, any recommendation on what we should be doing now about this?
No, I think that.
I don't think there's much that the planning board can suggest, but unless you want to contact Mr. Moran and talk to him about his homeowners association.
Well, but we came to the, we tried that, and we have an attorney who's tried that, and, I mean, we put a lot of effort into that. Yeah. And we're not, and he's not gonna communicate with us about maintenance on the road.
I think
I
there's
don't
scheduled
have anything more.
improvements to the road in front of your home.
And that's part of his special permit, right?
The road improvements there only pertain to the house lots that are a part of this development. They do not pertain to anything else along Blue Castle. So if there's any request for lot releases, and I think that's the issue here, is that these folks are looking for a release of a couple of lots that have been on the books for a long period of time, but the condition of Blue Castle has been such that the releases weren't allowed under the zoning bylaw.
Right.
So until that aspect of it gets taken care of, I don't think there's much that can be done. But any development with respect to this special permit and the subdivision is strictly for the approval of what was shown on the approved plans.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with outside landowners. It's a separate issue altogether.
And the improvements that are on the subdivision plan may or may not allow those other lots to be.
They do not allow those other lots. They apply only to the approval that was granted for the subdivision of the 14 lots and the special permit that was granted because it's a cluster development under the zoning bylaw.
In effect, I've been talking with Ellen for some time now. The way the roadway profile and plan was approved in the subdivision holds these residential lots a bit hostage to the completion of the subdivision. They can't build until this is done.
It's much the same as you've been dealing with all these years over at Conomet Highlands. People have come in from time to time and requested lot releases, and over a period of time, you've said, yeah, we'll release the lot if you continue to improve a portion of the road that was never completed. It's the same sort of thing.
Right.
In some cases over there was a fairly good stretch of Balfour that was completed, and you have the letters now that addresses the end of Fox Hill Road and Cypress Drive. That's the same sort of situation that these folks find themselves in.
Okay, so there's really no direction on what to,
I'm fine with John Polini or this gentleman calling up Charlie to discuss it a
Yeah.
little bit further.
Sure.
You know, it's a lot to kind of
It's Charlie.
absorb, but I think that if you or your attorney or Ellen wanted to talk to Charlie directly, I'm perfectly fine with him charging us that time.
I think, personally, as I've said, I'm not an attorney.
Right.
I don't want to speak beyond my capabilities. I would certainly, if they were to hire counsel, I'd be willing to share what little I can tell them about the process, the way that it's been going on, and what this particular project says. But I would not want to suggest a certain direction or anything for these folks to take. I don't feel that I should do that.
And Evan, you can always call.
oh, yeah.
I've spoken with Attorney Poloni at length on this
Okay.
issue.
Yeah.
I don't know what else.
All right, I mean, we're just trying to find a way to move forward without dealing with the rest of the drama and
It's
development.
tough.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Hi.
I just, Peter Michelson, 120 DeGrasse Road. I heard you mention that he sent you a letter wanting to put up a bond so he can start building houses?
No. He said that, as stated previously, I would anticipate bonding the top coat to ensure its completion, as it does not make sense to install it prior to all 14 homes being developed. That does not solve the issue
Okay, well,
for the development on Blue Castle.
But my idea, if you were gonna allow him to put up a bond so he can, I finished off Winslow Farms, I don't know if you remember it or not. I did the engineering and all the asphalt, and I did Hickory Circle and a few other things. So, I have some knowledge of bonds. I always just did all my work, came back to you guys and said, I'm all done, you gave me my releases. This person's been playing you guys for a really long time, and aggravating a lot of people. That stuff he's talking about should have been done already. If you had a quality developer in there, it would already been done. I don't think if he is proposing that he would post a bond or a cash bond or whatever it is so that he could start building houses, I think he should deny it because he needs to do the work. And I think putting time limits on him is good too. So
Well, the thing about a bond or a cash bond, if it happens to be that, is that the planning board can put a time limit on it, and if he does not perform within that time limit, the planning board and the town has the authority through the subdivision control law to take that, cash the bond in, and do the project using that money.
yeah, I remember I had to put up cash bonds before because back then the banks were all folding and the letters of credit were being dropped.
Letters of credit were no good, right.
And the letter of credit, we don't do that no more, do we?
Right.
No. So that's how I ended up getting into Winslow Farms because of that situation. So, but I was it's like, why reward him for not doing anything, that's all, so.
Well, again, the way that he secures the construction is an option which any developer can pick on his own, and the state statute is quite clear about that. But it does give the option to the planning board to set time limits on how much time they would allow him to complete that, even though he posts the bond.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we would be deliberating, if we did that. We're not talking about the release of any lots right now.
Oh, okay, I mean, you want to get a bond to make sure he does the work, that's awesome, yeah. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Real quick.
Okay.
Did Habitat get the lot?
Yes, Habitat is
has the deed to the lots indicated in the special permit. Is it, they are owned by Habitat for Humanity.
Any other comments from the public on this matter? Seeing no more comments, I'd like to, I'd entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to 7:20.
It's October 17th.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, seeing that the appointed time had arrived, the chair opens up the public hearing on the October 15th, well, it's a, I'm not opening up, it was, well, yeah, I am. Right, I opened it up because it was continued from September 27th, the public hearing on, regarding the October 15th, 2018 town meeting warrant, the proposed zoning amendments. The articles that were, that are being addressed at this point are 10, 11, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So, what I'd like to do, if the board's okay with it, is ask if there's anybody here from the public that missed our last meeting and would like to briefly address the board. I do want to acknowledge some correspondence that the board received. Regarding Article 16, Raise and Replace, we received an email from Fred Nadoff dated 10/3/18. He gave us an analysis of the people that had come before us at different times, last meeting and other times, whether they were in support or opposed to the Raise and Replace bylaw. Some background of some of the people who testified, and I really appreciate his time and patience to do that. We also received an email from Walter and Cheryl Whiteman of 419 Moscow Road, and that was regarding Articles 16 and 17, which is the raise and replace and the continuance, extension, or alteration bylaw. We received an email from John Furbush forwarding comments from Robert Fox. It was dated today as well. He summarized, he's a builder in town.
Builder, it's him and his father.
Yeah, so he summarized he supports the change in the bylaw regarding raise and replace, and talked about health concerns, environmental improvements, the misconceptions regarding McMansions and downsizing, and the complications of the FEMA requirements here in a flood zone. We also received an additional letter from Kevin Corain, dated today. And that's regarding the raise and replace Article 16, the continuance and extension article warrant number 17, and number 18, the setbacks from water or wetlands. He does represent some of his clients would benefit from these changes. He does note that, and he is he supports these changes. He gets very technical about Chapter 48, Section 6, and that addition is in here. And I think that's all the new stuff for raise and replace. Again, some of those were also in reference to Article 17 and 18. Nothing on 19, which has to do with the industrial district parking. We did get comments from town council. Did you see that? on several of these articles. In particular, Article 20, deletions of Section 174-25I, the piers, wharfs, and docks. And, you want to announce that one? Or do you want to do it when you take over when you take over the meeting? You can announce that letter. That's the one from Article 21.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna chair anything that has to do with Article 21.
What article?
Article 21, the mixed-use plan
All right.
development. Okay.
Oh, all right, I got it.
So is that okay if I open it up to anybody who is, who wasn't here at our last one?
I mean, are we gonna go through the warrant like Article 10?
You want to do that?
Yeah, let's go Article
Okay.
10. We can see if any public, and then we can vote
Okay.
on it.
I was going to close the hearing and then vote?
Oh, you wanna do them all and vote them all?
I want to close the public hearing and then vote. That's what we're supposed to do.
Okay.
Supposed to deliberate, we'll close the public hearing, deliberate, and vote. Okay, so is there anyone present that wasn't present before, that would like to comment on warrant Article 10 marijuana retail cap? Is there anyone present that would like to discuss warrant Article 11 sign enforcement? That hasn't testified before. Warrant Article 12, light industrial overlay. What are you making a sign to me for, Tom?
The sign one?
No, the overlay.
All right.
That was discussed with town council. It remains on the warrant as noticed.
So it's still on the warrant?
Yes.
All right. So we have in the warrant an Article 12. That's labeled light industrial overlay district. It's on our agenda. In the newspaper article, it's Article 15, light industrial overlay district. I believe there's a concern that the article that was current when this was published has now changed. So the article that was available for the public to look at when this notice was published has since changed. Do you know what I mean? Like the article, the different versions of the warrant that were before the Board of Selectmen has changed. And this article, this newspaper article, public notice, at that time referenced a different warrant article. It was modified after the public, after the public notice was published in the paper, the article was changed.
Those changes were substantial?
The mayor?
Well, there's no more architectural integrity in the area of incorporating design guidelines relevant to the Cape Cod vernacular. That's,
The issues, there was my predecessor raised issues with regard to notice. We discussed that with town council, we being town manager's office and myself. The article as presented in the existing warrant is going to be before town meeting. Whether or not this body decides to take action on that this evening is up to this board.
So we didn't answer your question, right?
so it changed.
Changed.
It changed. It's changed. So we can note that. We can note that in our recommendation. There is a matter that, might not get approved by the Attorney General because the noticing is flawed. I don't see anything in the article at this point that's a fatal flaw, but the advertising may be a fatal flaw.
Yeah.
So we can make a recommendation, or whatever, however we vote to town meeting. We can note it on the floor that we're concerned about the noticing or not. It's something that the Attorney General, if they're doing their job, will
Come back with an answer.
come back with an answer. Is it okay with everybody they move on?
Yep, move on.
Okay. Okay, so we skip a little bit. Remember, we already did 14, warrant article 16, raise and replace. Is there anybody in the audience that hasn't commented? Hi.
Good evening, Dean Barron, 6 Overlook Knoll Road. I believe that the existing Article 16 for guidelines to raising houses is in keeping with many of the other towns' actions. I've worked in 5 or 6 towns doing demolitions and replacing houses, even on the existing foundation. Dartmouth, on the water, Dennis, Orleans, Wellfleet, and this review of the Article 16 seems to be generated by the abutters that don't want any houses to be improved in their area, as opposed to the article being designed for the town.
Right.
This whole hearing process, unfortunately, I applaud you for being patient, but it's unnecessarily elongated and wasting the town's time and money. From a legal standpoint, this was set up initially for everyone to use. It's worked effectively for many, many years all across the town, and now all of a sudden, it doesn't seem to work for one person because the people on that street that are opposing it, that I live on, don't want to see anyone else have a new home.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the people opposing it already have their new homes.
Tell me about it.
They have second stories.
So if we could not bring up other people and just concentrate on
So technically,
the
this
meat of this article.
Article is specifically set up with guidelines to follow. And to all of a sudden start changing it midstream while there's applications already in place makes it kind of hard to make a clean decision. Doesn't give the town enough time to review it without pressure from outside influences, and I just hope that you take the time to look at what you've already designed. It's already worked for everybody. I agree with Rick Fox and the FEMA recertification. My grandfather owned a house on Nick Trail on top of the seawall. All of a sudden, the recertification puts that in the flood zone. It's 10 feet above the ocean. FEMA used to have a guideline of about 8 to 10 feet. Now all of a sudden 10's no good. You know, Overlook Knoll is 30 feet above the water. And so is Seaview. A couple of those are outside that. But changing these sort of things, and I've had long conversations with Charlie Maintainus of the building department about how FEMA is changing things that aren't really accurate, just making sweeping changes. I think this is just an example of how they think they can just make a change and don't encompass all the factors. And I think this article was good the way it was designed. It should stay the same.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd rather not. I mean, you've spoken.
I just want to refer to what he just said, that's all. I mean,
Yeah.
because everybody in the street is for it, except for him and me.
Okay.
everybody
But
else-
yeah.
So no names, nothing.
Okay.
But some
Okay.
things he
Come up to the mic, please.
Sure.
Dennis has recognized you.
You can't speak out and sit down.
You've opened it up, Dennis.
No, the gentleman, Gene, there, just Jim Kelly from Overlook Knoll, 30 Overlook, made it sound like only the new people that just had already built their houses are against. The whole street is against it, except for
Thank
2
you.
people. That was my point.
Thank
He
you.
misrepresented that.
No,
No, that's
we
okay.
took
That's
your point.
okay. We take
Okay,
his.
okay.
we take
Well,
his
he did,
comments
but
under
also,
advisement.
he's broken many laws on that street. He's been fined by the
We're
town.
not gonna, yeah, we
Well, he
can't-
He did. I'm just saying, he's not a good neighbor that way. You know what I
Made a
mean?
mistake letting you speak, so sit down.
Okay, that's not a, what do you mean, sit down? You shouldn't say that, Dennis.
Well,
First of all, you should recuse yourself from raise and replace because of what you said last week.
What do you mean?
And what you said last week is this has a lot to do with my daughter. Last week, right on the thing, that this will benefit my daughter. You should recuse yourself from voting on this
I said
article.
it would have. My daughter's house is already built.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I
All you got-
appreciate that comment.
Well, I mean-
So I'm going to let anybody who wants to come up and speak, because we've just broken my rule. So go ahead, and if you could just not talk
2 minutes.
about any of your neighbors and keep it short. Thank you, sir. And I appreciate your email going through and summarizing everything for us.
Thank you. Fred Natiff, 29 Overlook Knoll. So I guess the only point I'd like to make right now is, this is the 4th public hearing on this. Right. And after watching or sitting through all of them, it has become apparent, right, that the opposition to this is basically 100% of the opposition is against one or two specific properties, right? At the end of the day, I think back in May, we had 4 people speak against it. It was 3 people. By the way, full disclosure, it's my house they're talking about, right? So we had 4 people speak against it in May, right? 3 of them were neighbors on Overlook Knoll. One is their lawyer. On September 5th, we had a litany of people come up here in favor of Article 16. We had 1 person in opposition, by the way, the same person who spoke on May 5th. On September 27th, another litany of people coming up here, one after another, about how their houses are stalled. And then there were a couple more people opposed against it. Again, same person who talked the last 2 meetings, and their lawyer again, right? So I went back and counted, and with the last speaker, using him in the count, there's been 10 people speaking against this article. 1 person spoke 4 times, the lawyer spoke twice, another person spoke 2 times, and I apologize, there's only 1 other person, 9 people. So 9 of the 11 people that opposed it are against 1 specific property in 1 specific neighborhood, and that's not what this is about. It's about giving people their property rights, keeping the tax rate low, keeping the property values where they need to be, supporting the schools, supporting fire, supporting police, and putting up efficient and safer homes. So I'm going to end it quickly because I know that's what you want, but literally, this should never have been taken off the May vote. The opposition has been against 1 property in town. This is to benefit the whole town. So I don't know what else to say on it, but I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, hi.
My name is Denise Benoli. I'm the architect who designed the house at the 29 Overlook Knoll. I primarily have been registered architect for 29 years, primarily work in Falmouth and Mashpee, and I have designed several homes in Pompanesett already. I wanted to state for the record that the house, Natiff's house, does conform to all current state and Mashpee bylaws, all the regulations. The house is below lot coverage, it's below the height, its half story is below 50% of the floor below it. Its roof deck, widow's walk, is less than 100 square feet. The rail of the roof deck.
So do you have something to say about,
Yes, I do.
you have to keep to
Okay.
the
I will.
exact article that we're
Okay,
discussing.
So, the only nonconformities are the setbacks, and the 2 setbacks, and that's because.
But that's,
they're
you're talking
existing.
about the house.
Same property, let's talk
You're
about
talking about the
article.
property, and we get your point, but we're not here to talk about properties, because we're not special permit granting authority for that address. But, so we had another architect talk about their experiences in general.
Okay.
In
So,
the town.
The reason why the house was designed that way is because, in general, in the years that I've been doing this, I have gone to the Zoning Board of Appeals for 4 other projects just within the 2 years before this debate arose. And for the same setback issues, those were approved because, as the zoning board, one of the members said in the meeting, historically, we've ruled to take the setbacks closest to the existing point. That's what's always been, that's been the interpretation of the law. The problem I have with what's been going on here with the natives is between those projects, one was just 10 months before this debate started, projects that were approved, there hasn't been a change to the bylaw. There's just been a change in the interpretation of it. And I understand, having been in the business for 29 years, that there is a process to change bylaws. And there's usually a notification date. We know when it's going to happen. There's a debate, there's a vote, it's written, there's a date, there's often a concurrency period between the old bylaw and the new one, even with the state code, that happens a lot. And as a professional, I can plan for that. I can warn my clients. I can plan around it. Sometimes we try to get projects in before that date happens. What the problem is here is that there has not been a bylaw change, and yet my clients and other people here have been held in limbo for over a year while this is being debated. It's okay for a town to change a bylaw, but while it's being debated and until it is voted and changed, I believe that my clients and other homeowners like them should be judged with the same, under the same criteria that historically their neighbors have been judged by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Tom, you've talked,
I'll just speak 3 minutes and I'll add something.
it's something new.
Yes.
Brandy new.
Thank you.
Not that I don't like it when you come to the podium, but I'm getting tired.
What I wanted to add was the whole idea why we raise and replace homes.
You've already addressed that.
No, there's this is something different. Very often, when we look at a property, many people initially don't necessarily know that they will be raising and replacing a home, because many times budget is an issue. So very often you start trying to renovate a house and trying to plan on renovations, and you eventually you look at the house and you realize that the bad news is that can't happen. And so this is why we have this mechanism in place. And I look at the 26 years that we've done it. We've started to first look at renovating. It doesn't work. You need to have Article 16 pass so that we can have this mechanism. So
Thank you.
I'm just echoing my support and
Thank you.
really the need, the root of why we need it.
Thank you, and I appreciate you coming tonight. Okay, anyone else regarding Article 16, raise and replace? Okay. Warrant Article 17, continuance, extension, or alteration. Is there anybody who, okay, Tom, coming up. Is there going to be anybody else that's going to comment on that? No, not yet? Okay. Hi. I know you have something new for us.
Yeah, Article 16 gives, Article 17 takes away. I want to emphasize, as I did last time, Article 17 is not what it says it is. What Article 17 does is eliminate grandfathered rights that are in current zoning to build according to the rules that are in place when you built your house, to modify, continue, extend, alter the house according to the zoning that was in effect at the time your house was built, not current zoning. The amendment just says you got to meet current zoning. So half the towns are going to be made non-conforming by Article 17. It's nowhere in the explanation that that's what they're doing. And it really is sort of a bummer when I watch the selectmen read just the explanations and vote on those. And the Finance Committee did the same thing. They don't even understand what they're doing because they don't understand that they're taking away the grandfather rights of half the towns, houses in the town. So I just want to emphasize that. And it's a bad article. Please vote against it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else on Article 17? Moving on to warrant Article 18, setbacks from water or wetlands. Have you spoken on this before? Okay, come on up. Okay. Oh, okay. Hi.
Jim Kelly, 30 Overlook Knoll Road. As far as the wetlands, I live right on the water. We have wetlands there. We have them all over the place. And they're there for a reason. As the Army Corps of Engineers said, and, you know, you're supposed to have correct walls and so forth, and plumes and whatever else, roughage and all. I'm just for it. I'm not against it. I am for it. And I'd like to see that it doesn't even go near the 50-foot setback. We need at least that, you know? So,
So you're against this article?
yes.
Okay.
Well,
You're for wetlands, against the article
I'm
change?
against the 50, reducing it from 50 to 25, or whatever they want,
Okay.
40. Is that correct? So that's what we want to keep.
You want to keep the 50-foot buffer in zoning?
Definitely. It's always been like that. I'd like to keep it, you know, because the beach is our most important product down that area. And of course, we all have septic problems, or septic, which is coming up some other years. But I just don't want that interfering with it either. And it's too close to the ocean. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else regarding warrant Article 18? Warrant Article 19, Industrial District Parking. Okay, Tom. We know you don't like it.
New angle, just a question. Did anybody get to drive by so-called Mercantile Place on Mercantile Way and see what the hell I'm talking about in terms of how hideous that is? And you don't want that. So please vote against this article.
Okay. Anyone else for Article 19? Article 20, deletion of Section 17425, I-9, fixed and floating piers, wharf docks in its entirety. So this, yeah,
This is totally different.
this is totally different.
All right, you got a letter from Town Council Pat Costello relative to this article. You recall last time, because we were deleting a use totally from the table of uses. Normally, according to the rest of the zoning bylaw, it says a use is not allowed if it's not on the table. Town Council's come back and said, nah, he doesn't think so. And as part of his argument, he pointed out that the amendment was approved in 1985 to put docks over 70 feet onto the table of uses requiring a special permit, implying that wasn't there before. And I checked back in the zoning, and it wasn't there before. So I'm going to basically bow to Town Council and say, taking it off the table of uses, according to Town Council, does not eliminate your right to do a dock, so I'm taking that back.
Okay.
The only issue then becomes whether or not you want that extra protection for docks across over 70 feet of wetlands. And it's another case of an article that has an explanation that says absolutely nothing about what it's actually doing, which is removing the requirement that you get a special permit only for a dock that crosses over more than 70 feet of wetlands, not all docks, which you'd assume from the explanation.
Thank you. So I'm going to pass this off, that Article 21, to the Vice Chair.
Article 21 is a mixed-use plan development, a citizen's petition. We received this letter in regards to the citizen's petition from Mr. Chase. And he writes, the title is Mixed-Use Plan Development. Dear Chairman Wagon and members of the board, Mashpee Commons Limited Partnership respectfully request that the planning board vote not to endorse Article 21. This would change zoning to create a mixed-use planning development, MPD, zoning bylaw. The bylaw associated with this article was written and submitted as a citizen's petition in response to a presumed deadline for a similar zoning change petition proposed by Mashpee Commons. As Mashpee Commons has agreed to continue the discussion looking to the future town meeting, we request that the planning board give us the same courtesy that has been requested and demanded of us. The MPD bylaw has been written specifically for Mashpee Commons, and yet we have stated multiple times that we have no intentions of using it. This bylaw was written without any consultation from us, nor has it been given any consideration to the financial implications or logistical issues that the developer would face. Rather than have another bylaw written under the guise of being done for Mashpee Commons, we suggest that it would make more sense for the town to continue to have more conversations with Mashpee Commons to formulate a bylaw that works. For almost a year, Mashpee Commons has held open, honest, and transparent process that included the voice of everyone in town that wished to participate. Although that series of discussions and open forums, we learned that it's important to the community for the eventual expansion of Mashpee Commons. The MPD, on the other hand, was not written with the same level of input, nor does it address items in the fashion that were suggested by the community. There is a disconnect between what we heard from the public and what has been put forth in the MPD, and these differences need to be discussed in a larger context of the town's future. We have continued to research additional ideas on how to incorporate all that we have learned from the public process of our years of engagement in Mashpee. We feel that it would be highly productive to continue discussions with the planning board and other boards and committees in the town about how we must work together in anticipation of spring town meeting to agree on a viable path forward and the appropriate zoning changes to support that path. It is our hope that the planning board is willing to continue the discussion to determine the best path forward for the expansion of Mashpee Commons. The MPD is not that path, and to endorse it is an attempt to force something upon us. As we have stated, we're not looking to force anything upon the town. Agreeing it to take as much time as is absolutely necessary to thoroughly vet the Mashpee Commons proposal. As a show of good faith that the planning board is, in fact, interested in being a part of that process, we hope that you will take the opportunity to vote not to recommend Article 21. Sincerely, Buff Chase. Are there any comments from the board?
Me personally, I like to see us keep on talking with Mashpee Commons and table this. And if we can't get to agreement, we could put it back on the Springtown meeting. That's my opinion, though.
Okay.
I mean, I like to give them a chance. The only thing I don't understand, they had all these meetings with all the people in the town, and I asked months ago, I want to see what the people said, and they haven't showed me anything. And in that letter, they're saying how they're all open and transparent, but they haven't shown me, what the people really want in this town. And I'm kind of going up and down. One minute I want to put this forward because they haven't been good faith showing us, all the meetings that they had and what type of survey they, the count of it. But I like to keep on talking with them and personally, and see if we can work something out.
Anybody else?
I mean, I feel basically the same way. We don't need to do it now. Do it later.
I would agree with tabling it. If
But my put is Mashpee Commons
made a significant effort with getting town involvement. The 2 meetings that I went to, or sessions, they really never addressed the questions of affordable housing and the conservation land offer. They had dots going at, you like this, you don't like this. A lot of activity. They had maps. They had a lot of greenway activity. They had tremendous possibilities, but the significant issues that I see, they ducked. And I'm for putting this through on this warrant, because the only way they're going to talk about it, and we mentioned this before, that I felt we were at an impasse. They said economically we can't go with the current requirements. So that to me is an impasse. Continue discussing this unless there's, and then the other thing is the administration part of their design package just flies in the face of the planning board. It really eliminates it. So there are 3 issues that their plan does not address, and I think they're significant. And putting this forward will make the planning board voice heard to Mashpee Common.
I made my opinions very clear about both proposals. I think the planning board would be making a very wise decision to continue engaging with Mashpee Commons. It'd be, I think,
engage, definitely.
Continue to engage. I think the best possible outcome, as I've continuously stated, is going to come through effective debate and discourse, so that the merits of Mashpee Commons' proposal could be eked out. Maybe any of those items the board finds to be insufficient can be addressed, and that in subsequent town meetings, the draft proposal we've received can be amended to be in its best possible form to be accepted by town meeting, by this board, and by the Mashpee Commons. I think the board, I would like to see the board move to not recommend the citizen petition article, so that continued discussions could continue approaching Springtown meeting, and perhaps following. But Mashpee Commons has continued to show good faith to work with this board. I think we should continue to work with them.
But there's nothing in this article that prohibits continued discussions.
No,
There's not, but
that's the thing. I'm torn between both, whether to leave it go.
I just don't see the benefit in maintaining it if you want to maintain that good faith effort and positive communication with Mashpee Commons.
Well, the thing is, we can always be flexible, and we've shown that we're flexible.
I think the massive show of flexibility would be to request the removal of the citizen petition, so that that flexibility is clearly demonstrated, so we can work with Mashpee Commons on the best possible outcome.
Well, we can't remove the petition.
The citizen petitioner would be required to do so on town meeting floor. That's right. But the board can endorse or not to endorse or take no action on the article tonight.
Okay, I see somebody in the audience is ready.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas Ferranti. I'm here. I'm on behalf of Mashpee Commons. First of all, I would like to thank you for reading the letter in that Mr. Chase wrote. And I will say that I am encouraged this evening to hear that a majority of you are at least willing and open to continuing this dialogue and this discussion. I just wanted to just clarify one thing. Dennis, you mentioned that we hadn't yet shown everything that was a byproduct of the Mashpee Commons by Design process, but the Mashpee Commons by Design website has everything. That it has all of the Facebook Live feeds, it has all the presentations, it has the surveys, it has the visioning maps. Everything is out there that can show sort of how we ended up where we were. But I don't want to confuse the issue, because I know we're talking about something different here, but that sort of speaks to this notion of continuing this dialogue, so that we can sort of work through some of the confusion that has been created with these two separate bylaws that are similar yet unrelated. And I would just like to thank the board for taking the opportunity to have this discussion, for letting me speak. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Cummings. Dean Barron, 6 Overlook Knoll. I just wanted to present something that we've faced with other towns with larger commercial developments, and they've put a project of significant impact in place, or if there's any new development on an existing commercial site over a threshold of 15,000 square feet, they have to pay into a fund for the Affordable Housing Act, and it's just kept by the town and used down the road. If there's another project going on, they can beef that project up, or the commercial applicant can supply stuff to boost the affordable housing in the town as part of their development. Mashpee Commons keeps growing. It's clearly obvious. And they don't want to see housing around them or near them and take away what they could grow into. So by just giving them thresholds, that gives them guidelines that they don't build beyond, but the town also has some ability to hold them to some higher regard. That's why this article needs to be discussed more in depth, and you've got to take into effect the growth that's anticipated by some of these people that are speaking out about it. Thank you.
Tom?
All right. It's a nice letter from Buff. Couple of points I'd like to make, though, is that, he's talking about my article was not written with the same level of input. I went to every single meeting that was held as part of the Mashpee Commons visioning process. And I think that the article I wrote actually more accurately reflects what was said by people at those meetings than what they presented did. Aside from that, and that's something that you guys can continue to discuss, because I'm going to suggest that, I don't have a problem with you recommending town meeting table the article or indefinitely postpone the article to allow for more discussion. But I just want to put down on the table is that, what Mashpee Commons has come and done is said, well, affordable housing and open space, that kills the it kills the project. Well, every other subdivision in town has to have 50% open space, and doesn't get this 44 units per acre or 25 per acre. Every other town subdivision in town has to have 10% affordable housing, without any extra bonuses. They got one extra house for each affordable house they do. They're getting 44 and 25 under this article. So to say that somehow they're being abused because they're getting a lot more than everybody else gets that develops in town is sort of, that's disingenuous. The point I want to make, aside from that, though, is an article of this significance should not be written by the developer that wants to do the project. I attended a meeting of the Mass Association of Planning Directors a couple of weeks ago in Concord. The subject of the matter was zoning for large-scale development, and the speaker was Mark Bobrowski, who is the zoning expert in Massachusetts, the guy who writes the Bible of zoning, right? The Handbook of Massachusetts Planning and Zoning Law. And I was sitting at the table with him, and I suggested to him, never heard of a project where the developer comes in with a 280-page article to regulate his own project. I said, no, that's ridiculous. Any zoning that you do should be proposed by the town, not by the developer. You work with the developer, sure, to develop something, but you're not going to buy something that gets dumped in on you, as the Commons article was, and it has all of its faults, but I won't get into that. So the point I'd like to make is that there's a lot more discussion to be had. There's disagreements about whether or not what they're doing is really what people wanted to do when they spoke at those meetings. Like I said, I went to all of them. But I know that Buff wants to do a good project. Buff has always wanted to do a good project. It's interesting that the project that's proposed is very similar to everything that's been proposed for the last 30 years. So, again, you can talk about input or not. But available for anybody who wants to talk about the process going forward. This is my attempt at doing something that was done before they came in with their 280-page article, not a response to it. And I got no problem with town meeting indefinitely postponing it to allow for continued discussion. But I just like to make the point that the discussions should be driven by the planning board, not by the developer demanding things or refusing to do things and saying that, you know, project's dead if you make me do affordable housing. That's just no way to do business. That's my last statement on this. Hopefully, you know, I can stay away from these meetings and not get so much grief and watch TV or something on a Wednesday night. But thank you and good night.
You all set?
No one else from the public?
I don't see anybody, no.
People haven't caught the fact, I'm the petition, I'm the citizen petitioner. So, okay, so, seeing no more public comment, right? There's nobody here, right? I can close the public hearing. One of the longest we've had, so. I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So be.
Did you do the road taking articles? That last one, the road taking articles?
We don't have a public hearing on that, we just take a vote.
That's right, sorry.
Yeah, nope.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all right, so. Discussion by the board regarding warrant Article 10, which is the marijuana retailer cap. Any discussion?
I make a recommend approval of this article.
Article 10 marijuana.
Yep.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Warrant Article 11, sign enforcement. Remember, this has to do with
Penalties.
setting some monetary penalties in the zoning bylaw regarding signs. People have expressed concern about that the sign code needs work.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that the seasonal sign piece was pulled, and I think the whole sign code needs help. Saying that, I don't want to spearhead the effort. But anybody who does, there are some sign codes that actually have illustrations in them. And that would remove about 50% of the argument about what definitions of signs and all that stuff. But anyways, that's my only comment. Does anybody have any other comments about this? Seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
I make a motion, we recommend approval of Article 11.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 12, the light industrial overlay.
So that's still on the warrant now, right?
It is. You might see some pushback regarding how it was advertised, if it was advertised correctly.
Comment? So the advertisement was with regard to the second draft of the article, which was submitted by town planner and with design guidelines built into the overlay. The article before you and on the warrant was submitted to include the entirety of the I-1 and C3 districts, and then submitted by the Board of Selectmen. And therein lies the potential, or that my predecessor raised the question with regard to proper notice, because it is submitted by the board, and it could be interpreted as an alteration of scope, but it is still before town meeting.
We also got a comment, regarding removing the cafe food service and the outdoor seating, eating area from Section D accessory uses. Mr. Fidala thought that those weren't allowed, that they could be tweaks that were made to the bylaw later on. I'd rather do that than let anything go through that had some discrepancies. So,
So you're saying that this should be written a little better?
well, that we recommend it, but only if those two things are removed from the uses.
So how can we do that? So I could say I recommend approval of this article
Yeah, make a motion that that the planning board recommends
with the exception
this,
of,
right, with this article to town meeting, provided those two uses, and name them, are removed from accessory uses, the list of accessory uses.
okay, I recommend approval of this article with the recommendation of removing cafe food services, including restaurants that are not fully serviced, and outdoor seating areas from Section D accessory use.
Is there a second for that?
Second?
Any discussion? Again, in the light that we would redress that in a tweak later on. Okay. There's no discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 20. Nope.
No, Article 16.
16.
Article 16. How could I miss that?
Well, you're trying to make things easy.
Oh, I know. Okay, raise and replace. I've gotten a lot of comments. I know Dennis is for that. I have to say, I don't think this version of the article is an improvement of the one that I voted against in May. My big concern is that, and we raised it to the Board of Selectmen, it says detrimental, but it's not followed by detrimental to the neighborhood. And it was clearly asked to be put in, and it's not there. So, my same comments as in May. We don't have consensus. We have a lot of people fighting. I thought it made it clear that I thought that people should get together and try to write something up that was at least part of the way. So I'm not gonna support this as written. I know, Dennis, that you do.
Yep. I just want to make one statement before I go this. When that man said I should recruit myself, and when I said about my daughter, that was 3 years ago when they went through this. It wasn't last month,
Thank
2
you for
months ago.
clarifying that.
It was 3 years ago, so let me say it now. All right, now I recommend approval of Article 16 as written.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Any abstentions? So 3-2. Okay, next one, warrant Article 17, continuance, extension, and alterations. Now, let me find my stuff. Okay. I am very concerned about the comments about the elimination of grandfathering.
Yeah, me too.
I'm very concerned. I don't feel that, I feel the comments that we've been given from town council is one big, long, run-on sentence with no punctuation, and it's like, I don't know if this was done on a device or a computer. It has no punctuation. Sadly, I can't interpret it. So, sorry to have wasted the town's money by asking for an opinion on that. But, yeah, I I think this would be very detrimental to the town. So I'd entertain a motion
I make a
to,
motion we do not recommend this article.
Second?
any discussion? Okay, so it's all in favor of not recommending to town meeting?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. 18, setbacks from water or wetlands. So this last time we were here, I gave everybody stuff from 2016. 2016, there was a proposed warrant article to remove from zoning the 50-foot buffer from water and wetlands. We voted no. We recommended the town meeting vote no on it. Town meeting voted no. I just see this essentially the same thing. That town council is saying, oh, you could do it this way, but I still think we should have it in zoning. So I don't know how you guys all feel.
I agree too, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we do not recommend this Article 18.
That we recommend to not, that town meeting does not approve.
Does not approve this article.
Second?
Is there any discussion on that? Okay, so a yes vote would be to recommend, town meeting does not recommend.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Warrant Article 19, I-1 Industrial Parking District. I like the parking in the back.
But it's funny, you go up there now, and there's parking lot in the front.
I know.
They put the 2 new buildings up, and they didn't come to the planning board. I don't know if they were supposed to. How come
No, they get relief from the Board of Appeals, and
All right, so but they have parking all in
I
the
mean,
front.
everybody's like, design, 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 Mashpee, what does it look like? And it's one of the key things that planners and community developers do now is hide that parking. And I haven't, I just think that people should all be held to the same rules and have the parking in the rear. So I entertain a motion to recommend town meeting does not approve.
I make a motion, town meeting does not approve this article.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, so this yes vote would be to recommend town meeting does not approve the article. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Okay. Warrant Article 20, it's deletion of section 174-25, I-9, fixed and floating piers, wharfs, and docks in its entirety.
So, Mary, on this article, I don't understand, is it that the 70 feet?
This article
I don't
would
understand.
not, would take docks, piers, all of that out of the use table, and would not require a special permit for a dock that was 70 feet long. Okay, so in the use table, there's this piece. Any dock proposed to extend across a total of more than 70 feet of coastal beach, coastal bank, salt marsh, or bordering vegetated wetlands, all as defined in 310 CMR and/or coastal wetlands, freshwater wetlands, swamps, or marshes, all as defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, shall require a special permit from the Board of Appeals. All other docks will be permitted as of right. So if Tom's research on this is correct, there was a point in time where very extra long docks, 70 feet or more, were being proposed, and the town wanted to have a little bit more control, so they requested a special permit. At this time, this has been, I believe, proposed by the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals doesn't see that as necessary. And town council is saying that if you take docks, fixed and floating piers, wharfs, docks, boardwalks, blah, 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 out of the zoning bylaw, you're not taking it, you're not making it a pre-existing non-conforming use, that people will still be able to have those structures.
Is that clear as mud?
I think that leaving it the way it is as clear as mud, and they should have just taken out that sentence that I read to you about special permit and changed all the use codes to yes. Take out the SP. You can pass that down to Rob. Take out the SP and just leave it yes. So we had that recommendation from Tom, but he agrees with town council that basically what this would do is remove the special permit requirement for docks over 70 feet, but it would not eliminate the use of these docks and wharfs and piers in town.
I like this special permit.
You like the special
Oh,
permit
yeah.
control?
Control.
Yeah.
Would you like to make that motion?
Make a motion.
Make a motion to oppose,
To recommend to town meeting?
recommend to town meeting to oppose Article 18?
It's 20, 20, 20.
Article 20. Is
Article 20?
there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? So a yes vote would be a recommendation to town meeting to not approve Article 20. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Oh, Joe, you're on. 21. Mixed use plan development. There you go.
Warrant Article 21, Mixed Use Plan Development Citizens Petition. Somewhat sound familiar. Do you, where is that article?
Well, I mean, here's the whole. That's not the, that's the explanation.
A mixed-use plan development project containing a mix of commercial, residential, public entertainment, and other land uses conceived and designed as a signal environment in a compact form, a portion of which must lie within the C1 zoning district. Anybody have any comment on that?
I'm in favor of proceeding with the,
I make a motion, we table this article.
Second?
Joyce? Any discussion? Can I have a vote?
Motion on the table and a second from David.
Yeah.
You got a second from Dave, right?
So we're voting on tabling it?
Yeah, the table.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay.
okay. I don't think I get a vote.
It's 5-0.
Okay, now I make a motion, we adjourn, because I'm tired.
I'll second that.
We have to do the rotate.
Oh, all right.
Do we have to?
Yeah, the road,
It's a town meeting.
we do.
What can I tell
Road
you?
profiles are in this packet. I think Charlie's reviewed the large set plan.
Right.
So typically, there is a memo, Evan.
From whom? From me?
Typically, the town planner prepares a memo regarding the votes for.
Oh, these?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It shall be prepared for the Board of Selectmen?
I think it's the Board of Selectmen. I think it goes to the moderator. I think it goes to town clerk.
I'll send a draft to the chairman by the end of the week for review and submission before town meeting.
You might want to check how long we have. It might have to be sooner than that.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be a challenging memo. I'll make
Yeah.
sure the memo is submitted within the timeline of
Yeah.
the regulations.
Send it to
And
everybody,
it's,
then you'd be safe.
and I think it's from me, so I need to look at it.
I'll send a draft to you ASAP.
And I don't know who you would check with, who gets it, but I think it's the selectman, I think it's town manager, I think it might be FinCom, I think it might be
I'm
the
sure
moderator, and I
it's
think
indicated
it's,
in 40A and
Yeah.
Mashpee regulations,
Okay.
but I will make sure to follow them to a T.
thank you. All right. So, okay, discussion and vote on warrant Article 22 to see if the town will accept the layouts of Pierre Vernier Drive, Caitlin Way, and Gunter's Lane, and Pimlico Heights as public ways. So we have these plans in the packet. I know Charlie had one comment, I didn't know if that got resolved about,
I do not know. It was a comment that I discussed with Catherine about finding out if Cape and Islands had actually done a field survey to incorporate monuments in there of the street. She said she was going to check with them, and I don't know what the outcome of that was. Other than that, I see nothing wrong with the layout plans.
so should we recommend approval? And also recommend that I'm sorry, what did you use, the meets?
That the plans show the location of concrete monuments that identify the limits of the layout.
Okay. I'm fine with these. I'm fine with these. I'd accept a motion that planning board recommends town meeting approve and accept the layouts of these three roads, Pierre Veneer Drive, Caitlin Way, and Gunter's Lane, and encourage that the taking plans show concrete monuments that define the limits of the layout.
So be.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We don't have no bills to pay, right?
We
Already
did
done.
All right, good.
There's also a Willow Bend special permit modification number 34.
I've included the draft. It's probably, you should probably take time to review the draft, and it can be executed potentially if the language is to the liking of the board at the next meeting. The town clerk is also out of the office until next week. Once the language is approved, it can be notarized and go through the process, and everyone will be notified of the decision. That has to be done within 90 days of the approval. That was done on September 5th.
Okay,
So
sound good?
we're gonna continue that to next meeting, right?
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
So again, just the draft is in your packet if you review it.
Now I make a recommendation, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.